My roommate has rather plain features and a sturdy build, but possesses a singing voice so melodious and captivating it touches the soul. Upon hearing that the school board chairman's son had declared himself an audio enthusiast and was hosting a grand masked singing contest to find a girl with a sweet voice, she began to get restless and eager. When Althea asked me to help make a mask, I tried to talk her out of it. These rich kids are just bored and looking for amusement. They don't truly care about inner qualities. If you actually win first place, who knows how he might take his frustration out on you. She finally came around to my way of thinking and decided not to participate in the singing competition. But then, a girl with ordinary looks actually won first place at the competition. And the school board chairman's son kept his word by marrying her in a grand ceremony. Althea completely lost it. After carving up my face with a utility knife, she drowned me in a squat toilet. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the day of the singing competition. This time, I didn't stop Althea from performing with her face covered. Lynn, I remember you mentioned before that you're into cosplay and make a lot of props. Could you make me a mask, preferably white, with a lace crown on top and tassels at the bottom? Roy is hosting a masquerade singing competition tonight. The winner will not only receive generous prizes but also get to marry him. He said he's all about the voice, as long as it sounds beautiful, nothing else matters. Lynn, I want to give it a shot. Who knows, maybe I'm the sweet voice girl he's been looking for. As Althea spoke, a blush spread across her dark cheeks, and she shyly lowered her head. The familiar voice and words echoed once more, and it was as if she could still hear the gurgling sound of being submerged in water. I froze for a long moment, blinking, before realizing I had been reborn. Seeing that I hadn't responded for a while, Althea grew somewhat displeased. She impatiently furrowed her messy eyebrows and suddenly raised her hand to hit me hard. Hey, I'm talking to you. Can you hear me? Are you deaf? The slap left my arm stinging with pain, but I paid it no mind and instead let out a chuckle. Althea sensed something off about my attitude, withdrawing her hand and furrowing her brows even deeper. What are you laughing at? Are you out of your mind? Hurry up, are you doing this or not? If not, I'll find someone else. The way she said it made it sound like she was either burdening someone with a chore, or that they were getting the deal of a century at her expense. But I didn't refuse. Instead, I bent down, rummaged through the supply box for the lace fabric, a smirk playing on my lips. Do it. Of course I'll do it for you. My fingers flew as the scissors sliced through the lace. The hot glue gun hissed, dispensing its adhesive, while pearls and silver thread quickly took shape on the cardboard. In just half an hour, the mask was already taking shape. The white lace crown cascaded in layers, studded with rhinestones that sparkled delicately in the sunlight. The dangling fringe was strung with pearls and silver bells, emitting crisp, tinkling chimes at the slightest touch. Done. I handed the mask to her. Althea took the mask and scrutinized it closely, pointing out several flaws in the stitching and tassels that needed reworking. Look at the stitching, it's off by a millimeter. How embarrassing if someone spotted that on stage. And these tassels are uneven by one bead's length. They'll definitely swing asymmetrically. Only when I'd perfected the mask to her standards did she accept it with satisfaction, trying it on before the mirror. It's passable, I said with a laugh. Let me congratulate you in advance, Althea, with such a lovely voice. You're bound to take first place. Althea lifted her chin. Of course, have you forgotten whose voice this is? As she spoke, a sudden thought seemed to cross her mind. Her expression shifted slightly as she asked with feigned nonchalance, Lynn, what about you? Your voice is completely different from mine, but it's still pleasant enough. Don't you want to join the singing competition? I shook my head and brushed off the question. I have a child groom, and my family is well off. Only then did Althea relax, letting out a long sigh. She shot me a jealous glance, as if her pride had been wounded, and hurried away. I can't talk anymore. I need to go change for my stage performance. I nodded, smiling as I watched Althea walk away. In this life, I will fully respect Althea's personal destiny and let go of my savior complex. I'm genuinely curious to see what kind of dazzling life Althea will lead. Althea has plain features, an unconventional appearance, and a sturdy build, but possesses a remarkably melodious singing voice that touches the soul. She firmly believes that with her beautiful voice, she can attract a wealthy heir, marry into a rich family, and reach the pinnacle of life. To achieve this, she once went so far as to simultaneously engage in online relationships with 88 boyfriends. Every day, she held 10-cent meetings for masked video calls with them, singing lullabies that lulled each one into a blissful, embryonic state of devotion. These boyfriends of Althea's soon became utterly devoted to her, worshipping her through their screens as if she were a goddess. Some scrimped and saved to buy her cosmetics and handbags, others stayed up all night composing hundreds of love poems, and some even used recordings of her voice as lullabies, claiming she filled their dreams. But all these illusions shattered the moment Althea removed her head covering and met them in person. Before removing her headgear, Althea stubbornly insisted that while she wasn't drop-dead gorgeous, her looks were at least passable. She genuinely believed this to be true. Little did she know the reality would be so utterly horrifying. Some people were so disgusted they beat her while retching, while others demanded she repay them for their emotional distress. Of the few people who didn't mind Althea's true appearance, Althea found them not wealthy enough. I had advised Althea against doing these heinous things, but she always went her own way. After this incident came to light, I had thought Althea would learn her lesson and turn over a new leaf, but the very next day, she excitedly told me with a beaming face that she was going to marry into a wealthy family. I was completely taken aback, and only after pressing her for details did I learn that Roy claimed to be all about the voice. His greatest wish was to find someone with a beautiful voice to be his wife, and he didn't care at all about looks. If it's not a voice I like, I'll turn them down flat. To that end, he decided to hold a masked singing competition, where the winner would be married to him on the spot. Roy is the son of a school board member, and his family's wealth fits Althea's ideal of a wealthy, influential family. In her past life, upon hearing this news, Althea couldn't wait to attend the singing contest. She was convinced that her voice was unmatched and that it would captivate Roy instantly, making him devoted to her every word. Hearing Althea say this, I quickly tried to talk her out of it. These spoiled rich kids are just bored and looking for amusement. They'd never actually be indifferent to looks. If you end up taking first place, who knows how he'll take his anger out on you. It's practically common knowledge that Roy has a terrible reputation and is obsessed with beautiful women. His favorite party trick is pitting his female companions against each other in a beauty contest. The winner gets luxury items he casually hands out, while the losers become targets for public ridicule and humiliation from him and his cronies, treated like dogs. Countless girls have fallen into depression because of this behavior. How could someone like this not care about looks? Besides, I've never heard that Roy has a thing for voices. His sudden change in behavior is suspicious. There must be something fishy going on. After hearing my advice, Althea hesitated for a long time but ultimately decided not to go. But then, a girl with ordinary looks actually won first place in the singing competition, and Roy kept his promise, becoming her boyfriend and publicly flaunting their relationship every day. Expensive luxury gifts kept pouring in. Althea completely lost it. This is all your fault. If you hadn't stopped me, I'd be Roy's girlfriend right now. You're just jealous. You don't want to see me happy, catching me off guard. She first slashed my face with a utility knife. Before I could even process the searing pain, she shoved me to the ground and started whipping me wildly with a clothes hanger. Finally, defenseless and subdued, she drowned me in the squat toilet, a most undignified death. Fortunately, fate granted me another chance to start over. I won't let my bleeding heart get the better of me again. I never intended to go to Roy's masquerade concert in the first place, but when my other roommate heard Althea was performing, she dragged me by the arm and we bolted straight for the auditorium. The auditorium was already packed, and the neon lights were blinding. My roommate pulled me through the crowd to the front row, and we'd just found our footing when the host announced the next act. Next up, contestant number 17, Althea. The spotlight swung toward the backstage entrance as Althea stepped slowly into view. She wore that white princess dress, a lace crown glowing softly under the lights, with delicate tassels draped over her shoulders swaying gently with each step. The corset cinched her robust frame, giving her a surprisingly slender silhouette. The moment Althea began to speak, the boisterous hall fell into an immediate hush. Her voice, like a honeyed evening breeze, washed over everyone, carrying the soft glow of moonlight. It was an old song she sang, its melody tinged with a somber air, yet when filtered through Althea's voice, the melody took on a haunting, lingering quality that seemed to cling to the air, reducing even the piano accompaniment to a mere backdrop for her. As the final note faded, a profound silence held the auditorium for 3 full seconds before erupting into thunderous, roaring applause. Before the applause could even subside, Roy abruptly rose from the judge's table, dressed in an impeccably tailored white shirt, his lips curved in their usual casual smirk, yet his gaze remained intensely fixed on the lace-masked figure on stage. No need to continue the competition. Roy's voice echoed through the auditorium via the microphone, instantly silencing the commotion. Contestant number 17 has this championship in the bag. The audience below first fell into a dead silence, then erupted into an uproar. Roy acted as if he hadn't heard, walking straight toward the stage. The sound of his leather shoes against the floor was unusually distinct. He stopped in front of Althea, tilting his head slightly to examine the lace crown. "Take it off. Let me have a look." Althea's shoulders visibly stiffened. "Didn't you say we'd only use our voices, Mr. Joe?" She didn't move, only retorted from behind the mask, her voice muffled by the fabric. Roy smirked. "That may be true, But shouldn't I at least get to see my future wife? You're not planning to wear that mask for the rest of our lives, are you? Althea trembled with excitement at Roy's words, as if she could already see the day she'd marry into wealth. She practically ripped the mask off in her impatience. The air in the room instantly went still. A sharp gasp came from the front row, like someone had been pricked with a needle. Then, whispers spread like a rising tide, growing louder and louder until they turned into open discussions. Oh my god, the contrast is just too extreme, isn't it? Yen Master Zhou is in for it. No wonder he's wearing a mask. I wouldn't dare show my face either if I were him. She looks like some bizarre creature, but her voice is so sweet. Lip syncing, right. Censor that horror show. Someone made an exaggerated horrified face at their companion, discreetly pointing toward the stage. A few well-dressed girls in the back row even covered their mouths and giggled. The excitement on Althea's face froze, and beads of cold sweat trickled down her forehead. Anxiously, almost cautiously, she lifted her head to look at Roy. Roy took a step back, his dark, unreadable eyes fixed on her. But to everyone's surprise, Roy suddenly stepped forward and gently tucked the stray strands of hair behind Althea's ear, away from her pockmarked cheek. His movements were natural and intimate. But when his fingertips brushed past her ear, Althea flinched as if she'd been burned. Roy picked up the lace mask from the floor and carefully placed it back on her head, gently tying the ribbons. That was too forward of me. Did I startle you? He raised his voice to address the audience, speaking even louder than when he had announced the winner. Let me introduce Althea, my girlfriend. A deathly silence fell over the crowd, followed by an even more intense uproar than before. Some were shocked, others bewildered, and a few even wore expressions of gleeful anticipation, but Roy acted as if he hadn't noticed, simply reaching out to take Althea's hand. Althea was led backstage by him, her steps as unsteady as if she were walking on cotton. How bizarre. Could I really be wrong? Is Roy actually completely innocent? My gut tells me it's not that simple. This isn't over yet. I didn't see Althea again for the entire following week. It was Monday morning, and I was rushing back to campus for my 8 a.m. class, feeling particularly resentful. As I dragged my suitcase toward the dorm, an obnoxiously flashy purple supercar suddenly zoomed past me, missing me by mere centimeters. Then, it whipped around with a screeching drift, the tires tearing through the morning quiet and drawing stares from passing students. My face darkened. You're insane. Should have had my dad buy out this school. The sports car screeched to a halt in front of the building, its doors swinging upward like wings as Althea stepped up from the passenger seat. I looked up and almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was styled in loose waves. She wore the latest runway haute couture and carried a limited edition handbag. Expensive jewelry adorned her neck, wrists, and ears. She had also done her makeup, applying a thick layer of foundation. Though it did little to help, the sports car's engine purred softly as Roy rolled down the window. Althea immediately bounded forward with a playful laugh, right in front of everyone. They shared an intimate, lingering embrace. Finally, Althea spoke in a coquettish tone. Come pick me up early tonight. Roy nodded with a smile. I'll bring you your favorite bubble tea when the time comes. The surrounding students erupted in murmurs and excited discussions. A triumphant smile spread across Althea's face as she spotted me through the crowd. Lynn, I really owe it all to the mask you made for me. That's what made Roy fall for me. You have no idea how obsessed he is with me. He just can't get enough of me. And the clothes, jewelry, and bags he's showered me with, I've lost count. He even took me to that upscale revolving restaurant downtown. Can you believe it? Most people have to book 6 months in advance just to get a table there. I nodded. I know that place. It's my family's restaurant. Althea's face stiffened, her composure beginning to crack. A moment later, she deliberately flashed her ring right in front of my eyes. Roy said he'll propose right after I graduate. You'll be my bridesmaid, won't you? The murmurs around us grew louder, with some sighing in envy while others remarked with a hint of sourness. Who would have thought? Althea's gaze lingered on my face, as if waiting for me to show admiration or jealousy. Class was about to start, and I was growing impatient, so I responded flatly, "Oh, well, wish you happiness." The smug look on Althea's face instantly froze, as if she hadn't expected me to react this way. She paused for a moment, then leaned in closer, shaking the ring even more vigorously. "That's all you have to say, Lynn. If you had competed back then, Roy and I wouldn't have stood a chance." "Yeah, that's great." I cut her off, my gaze drifting past her shoulder toward the school building. "Class is about to start. I should get going." Althea flushed with frustration, but could only watch helplessly as I walked away. From that day on, Althea started frequently leaving early, coming home late, and even skipping classes altogether. Eventually, she'd disappear for days on end. When the advisor asked me about it, I told her the truth. "Oh, you mean Althea, she's dating Roy now." The moment she heard Roy was involved, The advisor dropped the matter and just told me not to follow Althea's example. I nodded, completely unfazed. With Althea gone, we actually felt more at ease and could finally enjoy the air conditioning at a normal temperature. When she was in the dorm, even if the temperature hit 39 degrees Celsius, she'd stubbornly refuse to turn on the AC, claiming she wasn't hot whenever asked. But the moment someone else turned it on, she'd rush to crank it down to 16 degrees Celsius. Preferring to bundle up in a winter coat rather than adjust it to a reasonable setting. When it came time to split the electricity bill, they had the audacity to claim they never turned on the appliances themselves, so they refused to pay their share. They particularly enjoyed making all sorts of clattering noises while we were trying to sleep, and would eat stinky luosafen noodles, chive boxes, and surströmming, fermented herring. They wouldn't even bother throwing away their used takeout containers and trash, just leaving them there to rot and stink up the place. With Althea gone, we could finally enjoy a normal dorm life, but before I could fully enjoy these good times, my phone rang with a call from Althea. I was in the middle of something when it happened. No sooner had I hung up than Althea called again. With a sigh, I had no choice but to answer. "What's up?" Althea's voice on the other end of the line was filled with anguish and terror. "Lynn, you have to come quick. Roy left me," sobbing. "You were right. I should have listened to you instead of chasing impossible dreams." Her sobs, thick with congestion, came through the receiver in broken gasps while the sharp crash of shattering glass echoed in the background. "He just brought some woman back to our old apartment and said I was in the way. He also said all those gifts were just random purchases to string me along. The necklace is a cheap knockoff, and that bubble tea was leftover from what he bought for a homeless person. Lynn, get over here now. I don't want to live anymore. I picked at my fingernails. I'm taking a dump. Can't come." The crying through the receiver suddenly intensified, laced with hysterical urgency and insistence. "I don't care. You get over here right now, immediately, this instant. If you don't come, I'll jump from here, and when the police ask, I'll tell them you stood by and let me die." Althea's urgency in summoning me has genuinely piqued my curiosity. Let's be real, her pride is the toughest thing about her. She'd rather take out predatory loans than admit she's broke, all to save face. So why would someone like that make such a public display of complaining to me about her misfortunes? A smirk curled my lips as I hurried to the address Althea had given me. The navigation finally led me to a private room in an upscale club. I raised an eyebrow. Who breaks up in a place like this? Besides, jumping from here wouldn't even kill you. Althea keeps texting me to hurry up. "Are you here yet, Lynn? Come on in if you've arrived. Where are you? If you don't get here soon, they're going to bully me to death." Roy brought a whole crowd, and they were all laughing at me. One minute she's talking about jumping, the next she's saying he brought a bunch of people just to mock her. It's completely incoherent, like her left brain is arguing with her right brain. After sending a text to a certain number, I pushed open the door to the private room. It was pitch black inside, with no lights on, so dark you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. "Althea," I called out, and my voice hit the wall, bouncing back with a hollow echo. There was no answer. I had only taken 2 steps forward when something suddenly snagged my ankle, throwing me off balance and sending me stumbling headfirst. My elbow slammed hard against the edge of the coffee table, the sharp pain making me gasp. Before I could even try to get up, coarse ropes were tightly bound around me, cinched with such force they felt like they were grinding into my bones. Seeing that I was no longer capable of resisting, the private room's lights snapped on with a sharp click. The harsh glare was blinding. I had to squint for a few moments, letting my eyes adjust. Before the scene before me came into focus, Roy sat squarely in the middle of the sofa, a cigarette pinched between his fingers, his face contorted with greedy depravity. Althea stood beside him, all traces of the pitiful tone from their phone call gone. A nervous yet smug smile played on her lips as she clutched a half-coiled hemp rope. "Lynn, don't blame me for this." Althea spoke first, her voice trembling yet filled with desperate resolve. "Roy said he wants to break up with me. I can't live without him. He told me he has a bit of a thing for you. I thought, if I just give you to him, maybe he'll change his mind." As she spoke, she edged closer to Roy, as if seeking his approval or mustering her own courage. "Look, you come from a good family, and so does Roy. Why don't you two just get together? I wouldn't mind sharing. It's better for Roy to be with you than with those sketchy women, right?" I stared at Althea, feeling nothing but pity and contempt for her. To cling to someone who clearly doesn't love her, she'd resort to such despicable tactics, using her roommate as a bargaining chip. She's even willing to be his accomplice in cheating. Roy stayed silent, but his greasy gaze kept crawling all over me. The moment Althea finished speaking, he let out a low chuckle, unmistakably suggestive, and reached up to grip my chin. "She's not wrong, Lynn. Your temper may be awful, but your face isn't half bad. It'd be an honor for you to spend a night with me. Don't worry, I'll treat you well. You can become one of my mistresses when the time comes." His fingers were cold, reeking of smoke, and their touch was utterly repulsive. I jerked my head away sharply, causing Roy's hand to miss its mark. The smile instantly faded from his face, his eyes darkened, and a shadow of menace crept into his expression. "What?" Still playing the innocent. "Roy, look at her." Althea stood by, fanning the flames with a voice tinged with obsequious deference. "That's just how she is, always thinking she's better than everyone else. Don't let her get to you. If you like it, I'll hold her down for you." She moved to grab my arm, but Roy shoved her away. "Get out of the way. Don't interfere." Althea stumbled back 2 steps, a flicker of hurt in her eyes. I bit my lip, not daring to make a sound, but looked at Roy with pleading eyes as if to say, "See, I'm doing everything you say. Please don't leave me." Roy's patience seemed to snap. His eyes darkened as he lunged at me, his alcohol-tainted hand grabbing straight for my collar. Althea just kept repeating, "Lynn, just give in. It's better for everyone." I clenched my fists and was about to kick his knee with all my might when the private room door suddenly burst open with a loud bang. Several men in black suits rushed in and swiftly pinned Roy down with practiced efficiency. Leading them was my father's special assistant, Uncle Zhang. His face was livid, and his eyes turned as cold as ice when he saw the rope burns on my wrists. Roy was pinned to the ground, still struggling and cursing under his breath. "Do you have any idea who I am? How dare you lay a hand on me? I could have your boss out of a job by tomorrow." He glanced at Uncle Zhang, and seeing the man's plain suit, his expression grew even more contemptuous, putting on airs in front of me. Uncle Zhang ignored him and simply gave a slight bow in my direction. "Are you all right, miss?" Roy sneered. "What, miss? Are you putting on an act? Lynn is just an ordinary student. Don't try to fool me. I've never heard of any damn Lynn family." I walked up to Roy and looked down at him. "Never heard of the Lynn family? No wonder. The Zhous are nothing but a puny insect we could crush any time. When your father met mine, he bowed even lower than you are now. Lewin Group, which your father begged to partner with last week, is our subsidiary. My father put me in charge of approving the deal." Roy's pupils contracted sharply, his previous arrogance instantly replaced by sheer terror. His lips trembled uncontrollably. He was utterly petrified. Lewin Group." His face turned deathly pale, cold sweat beating at his temples and trickling down his cheeks. "Lewin Group is notoriously known in the industry as a corporate titan. Last week, to secure the deal, his father dragged him to 7 different dinner meetings. Each time, they were left waiting in the reception room until late at night, and in the end, they didn't even get to meet Lewin's vice president. He knew all about these events, but it never crossed his mind that the unattainable giant his father couldn't reach even on tiptoe was actually the Lin family's business. You, his finger pointed at me, trembling like a leaf in the autumn wind. "Miss Lin." Roy suddenly dropped to his knees with a heavy thud, his kneecaps hitting the floor with a dull sound. All the aggression he had shown earlier, when the bodyguards restrained him, vanished, replaced by incoherent pleas for mercy. "I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I was blind and foolish. Please, you're magnanimous. Don't hold it against me." He tried to crawl toward me but was blocked by the bodyguards, so he just kept kowtowing in my direction, his forehead quickly turning red. "If my father finds out, he'll kill me. Please, Miss Lin, just let me off this once. I'll do anything for you, I swear." Althea, standing nearby, was utterly dumbstruck, her jaw hanging slack for what felt like an eternity, her face even paler than Roy's. Yet, beneath the surface, a deep-seated envy and resentment smoldered in her eyes. I idly picked at my fingernails, feeling a bit bored. Ever since my rebirth, I've deliberately avoided asking my father for help with revenge. I wanted to see what fate had in store for Althea. To my surprise, that idiot actually managed to pull off something like this. My initial plan was to leave them all for Uncle Zhang to deal with, but seeing the red mark on Roy's forehead and catching a glimpse of Althea's bitter, envious glare, I suddenly remembered the rumors I'd heard about Roy. If that were true, Althea would. At that thought, I smiled. It would be such a waste for this drama to end like this. A brilliant idea suddenly struck me. "Uncle Zhang." I raised a hand to stop my assistant from speaking further, my tone languid. "Untie him." Roy froze mid-kowtow, staring at me with utter disbelief. Even when the bodyguard released him, he remained kneeling, his knees pressing creases into the carpet. You're really letting me go?" His voice trembled, his eyes filled with disbelief and uncertainty. I gave a warm, friendly smile. "Of course, you and Althea just had a momentary lapse in judgment. We're all classmates here. Let's just put this behind us." The shock in Roy's eyes gradually gave way to an expression of utter disbelief. Seconds later, he abruptly prostrated himself, his forehead striking the carpet with a dull thud. "Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. I'll never dare do it again." Seeing Althea still frozen in place, he whipped his head around to glare at her, his voice sharp with impatience. "What are you standing there for? Get on your knees and kowtow to the young mistress." Althea flinched at his roar, as if jolted awake from a dream. Her knees buckled and she dropped to the floor, her movements so frantic she nearly tripped over herself. She dug her nails deep into her palms, hiding the resentment in her eyes as she offered me a reluctant, half-hearted apology. A smirk tugged at my lips, paying no mind to her attitude. I left the private room with Uncle Jean. "Now, all we have to do is wait. The show is about to begin." Sure enough, a month later, while I was in my dorm munching on watermelon and binge-watching a show, Althea suddenly stormed in, fuming. The dorm door was kicked open with a loud bang, slamming against the wall and bouncing back. Althea stood in the doorway, chest heaving violently. Her foundation was streaked with tears, and her carefully styled curls now clung in a messy tangle to her dark cheeks. Her eyes burned with fury. Her once white dress was stained with dark coffee splatters, as if someone had thrown a cup right in her face. "Weren't you planning to move out? What are you doing back here?" Althea didn't answer me, just started smashing things in a wild, frantic rage. She was only smashing cheap little things, books, mugs, and the like. Damn it, damn it, damn it, that bitch. What does she have that I don't? How dare he? Go to hell, go to hell. Just drop dead. And Roy even threw coffee at me because of her. How could he? Die, you bitch. How dare you try to steal my man? While she was having her meltdown, I calmly took a bite of watermelon. I heard about Althea's situation a while ago. After the incident in the private room that day, Althea and Roy went through a major crisis together, saw each other at their most vulnerable, and their relationship quickly deepened. They soon fell head over heels in love, spending every moment glued to each other, their bond as strong as steel. It was like Roy became a different person overnight. He stopped acting like a privileged young master around Althea and even started waiting for her outside the girls' dorm with breakfast in hand. Althea toned down her vanity, her voice softening as she couldn't stop gushing Brother Roy all day long, the infatuation in her eyes plain for all to see, nourished by love. Althea soon transformed, growing more self-assured and leaving her eccentric antics behind, but the good times didn't last. A woman with a more captivating voice and even more striking looks than Althea made her entrance. The moment Roy laid eyes on her, he was utterly spellbound. He showered her with flowers and dates, completely ignoring Althea as if she were invisible. No matter how desperately she pleaded, it was all in vain. Today, Althea even knelt down begging for reconciliation, but Roy, annoyed by her presence, threw his coffee on her. Althea was on the verge of losing her mind. After watching her meltdown for a while, I finally spoke up to console her. "Althea, don't be upset. Maybe there's something special about her that caught Roy's eye. Once he gets bored, he'll come back to you." Hearing this only made Althea angrier. "Ugh, what's so special about that bitch? She's not even prettier than me. What on earth does Roy see in her?" I pretended to hesitate. "Well, there's actually a rumor about Roy that might explain his behavior. I'm just not sure if I should say it." Althea immediately perked up, her ears practically twitching with anticipation. "What is it? Spit it out." I took another bite of watermelon. "It's just hearsay, but apparently Roy acts this way because he has a psychological disorder." "What's it called?" "I think it's white knight syndrome." I smacked my lips and spat the watermelon seeds into the trash can. "He just gets a kick out of saving people who seem like a mess, like a knight rescuing a princess. That's where he gets his satisfaction. That's exactly why he started dating you, Althea, because you're not conventionally attractive. He gets to play the savior and bask in that feeling. So when he met that girl who's even more, let's say, visually challenging, he shifted his affections without a second thought." Roy's white knight syndrome was exposed when his so-called friends leaked the story. They say before Althea came along, he'd rescued several other girls, those from impoverished backgrounds, ones with congenital conditions, and others considered below average in looks, but every single one of those girls ended up getting dumped. Some, like Althea, were replaced when he found someone he deemed even more unfortunate. In other cases, Roy simply got bored and moved on, without exception. They all developed severe psychological disorders after the breakups, with some even choosing to end their own lives. But thanks to the Joe family covering up for Roy and suppressing the news, these incidents never made waves. Ironically enough, despite this condition of his, it never stopped Roy from playing the savior while simultaneously indulging in hedonistic pleasures and chasing after beauty. He claims you're his one and only, then turns around and fools around with other women. So this is what they call digital detox. Althea's face flushed and then paled, as if she'd been slapped hard across the face. "So all my effort to look good is for nothing? That bitch is just slightly uglier than me. Was it really worth it for Roy?" The words escaped Althea's lips before she suddenly realized something. "Wait, if you say Roy loves playing the savior, does that mean if I'm more miserable than that girl, he'll come back to me?" Althea's eyes suddenly lit up. As if she'd grasped at a lifeline, her fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of her shirt. Yes, that's it. Doesn't he love rescuing those worse off? Then I'll be more pitiful than anyone. I'll need him more than anyone else. She shot to her feet, the chair legs scraping against the floor with a jarring screech. The frustration on her face was instantly replaced by an unsettling excitement. I smiled without saying a word. Yes, I deliberately said those things to provoke Althea. With my objective accomplished, there was nothing left to say. As Althea spoke, her eyes grew brighter. As if she had found the key to breaking the deadlock, she grabbed her bag and the fruit knife that had stabbed me in our past life, then rushed out. I finished the last bite of watermelon and leisurely followed after her. She headed straight for the entrance of the girls' dormitory building 13. Roy was walking out side by side with Chloe. They were talking about something, and Chloe had a faint smile on her face. Althea charged forward like a madwoman, shoving Chloe aside. Gripping the fruit knife tightly, she slashed it across her own face. The blade sliced through her skin with a faint hiss, and blood immediately streamed down her cheek, staining her chin and collar crimson. Althea trembled from the pain but kept her eyes locked on Roy. Her voice distorted by agony and fury. Look at me, aren't I more pitiful than her now? My face is cut, I'm disfigured, I've become the ugliest one. Don't you like saving the miserable? Then save me. The air instantly froze. The students who had been laughing and playing around all stopped, staring at the scene in horror. Contrary to Althea's expectations, Roy showed not an ounce of pity at the sight. Instead, he recoiled as if scalded by something filthy, his eyes brimming with disgust. Could you stop using these cheap tricks? Let me make it clear, this is what disgusts me the most. Althea's sobs intensified, her face now a grotesque mask of blood and tears smeared across her skin. You only cared about me because I was pitiful before, weren't you? Now I'm even more wretched. Why won't you look back? Roy's voice dripped with disgust. I help people who are genuinely in need. This manufactured misery turns my stomach. Did you really think this would make me come back? Dream on? Starting today, I don't want to see your face again. Just looking at you makes me sick. With that, Roy turned to leave. Althea's sobs cut off abruptly, as if someone had grabbed her by the throat. She stared blankly at Roy's resolute retreating figure, the last glimmer of light in her eyes extinguished completely, replaced by a near-destructive madness. As Roy turned around, she snatched the fruit knife from the floor and lunged at him with all her might, driving the blade deep into his back. Ah! Roy cried out in pain, staggering and collapsing to the ground as blood quickly soaked through his shirt. The crowd erupted into chaos, screams and gasps mingled together, some frantically pulling out their phones to call the police, others stumbling backward in terror. Althea stood frozen in place, her grip on the knife handle still trembling. A few drops of Roy's blood splattered across her face, her eyes hollow and terrifyingly vacant, staring at Roy's collapsed form. She suddenly broke into laughter, a shrill, desolate sound that cut through the air. See, now you can't leave. None of you will get out of this unscathed. You started this. It was always you. Roy lay on the ground, struggling to look back at her, his eyes filled with terror and disbelief. You. Before he could finish speaking, he lost consciousness. Althea stared at Roy's face, then at her own blood-stained hands, and suddenly, as if all strength had been drained from her, she collapsed to the ground. The wail of sirens grew louder and clearer, drawing near like a death knell. She knew there was no escape. A split second before the police reached her, she drove the blade into her own body with sudden force. Roy ultimately survived, but the blade had severed his spinal nerve. He would spend the rest of his life bedridden, able to move nothing but his eyelids. He could no longer play the savior. His past misdeeds were exposed, causing Joe Group's stock to plummet. To salvage their reputation, the Joe family immediately cut ties with Roy and provided all victims with lifetime compensation. Althea was sentenced to 20 years in prison for intentional assault. The knife she stabbed herself with pierced her left lung. Though she survived thanks to timely medical intervention, it left her with lasting complications. Winters in prison were bitterly cold. On damp, rainy days, a sharp, icy pain would seize her left chest, making her break out in a cold sweat. Her cellmates found her a nuisance and constantly gave her a hard time. 20 years is long enough for a young woman to wither into middle age. With the prison walls cutting her off from the outside world, she was still alive, but worse off than dead. By then, I had already received an acceptance letter from a top-tier university abroad and was about to embark on a new chapter of my life. I never saw Althea again. Story 2. My brother and I both chose orc wives at the same time. As the pampered heir of the Song family, he unhesitatingly picked the formidable white wolf warrior. Moved by the tragic fate of orcs, I chose the dying mermaid from the gladiator arena, but who knew the white wolf would be so aloof? Despising humans, no amount of taming could make it acknowledge my brother as master. My mermaid wife was utterly devoted, not only attending to my every need but also using her healing arts to restore my legs after years of disability. consumed by jealousy over the family inheritance, my younger brother orchestrated a fatal car accident to eliminate me. When I opened my eyes again, I'd inexplicably been reborn on the very day of the gladiatorial bride selection. This time, my brother rushed to claim the severely wounded mermaid for himself. I accepted the white wolf with a smile. Dear brother, you can keep this venomous mermaid as your precious treasure. Her gentle obedience was nothing but an illusion. On the eve of inheriting the family leadership, the car I was in got into an accident, flipped over by a speeding truck. I lost consciousness in excruciating pain. Then I became a spirit floating midair. I watched helplessly as gasoline spilled from the wreckage, sparks ignited, and flames engulfed my corpse. My ever-gentle and lovely mermaid wife, Cressida, emerging from the shadows, she bared her fangs at my corpse. What a pity, Elliot, a mere traffic accident was too merciful for you. You should have died screaming under my merfolk's ancient curses. Only at this moment did I realize Cressida's fragility and submission were all an act. She sought vengeance for the merfolk, plotting against me from the very beginning. If I don't perish by my brother's hand in this inheritance feud, I'll surely meet my end through hers. How tragic, all my dearest ones actually wished for my death. Consciousness drifted in the darkness until my eyes opened again to light. I realized I hadn't descended into the underworld after all. Before me stood the unmistakable arena, that damned Colosseum. Did I just reincarnate? My younger brother Kane was sitting beside me as father explained the purpose of today's gathering to us brothers. Elliot, Kane, the tournament will begin shortly. You have 15 minutes to make your selections. Remember, the orc you choose will become your wife and provide support for your future. This could even jeopardize your claim to the family succession. Tread carefully. As father's words faded, my gaze shifted to the dozen beastfolk chained in the fighting pit. Every year, the arena masters abduct underage beastfolk from tribes across the land. They're then thrown into the arena to stage bloody spectacles for the wealthy's amusement. Most orcs who enter the arena meet their end here. Only a select few, chosen by the wealthy as pets, escape death. Orcs possess formidable combat prowess, regardless of gender. The Song family business specializes in arms trade, where martial strength reigns supreme. That's why our clan established the tradition of choosing beastkin partners upon coming of age. In our past life, Kane unhesitatingly selected the mightiest-looking white wolf from the arena. While I, moved by compassion, chose the frailest mermaid, had I not chosen her, I surely would have perished in that tournament. Little did I know, this mermaid carried a deadly venom. She lurked by my side, waiting for the perfect moment to strike me down. When making my choice this lifetime, my gaze briefly lingered over the mermaid Cressida, then turned toward the other beastfolk candidates. Kane's excited voice rang in my ears. Father, I want this mermaid. I looked at him in surprise. Given Kane's arrogant and competitive nature, he'd surely picked the strongest beastman on the field, yet he actually chose Cressida. Just like in her past life, Cressida lay curled in the farthest corner, her body covered in wounds. She could barely maintain her human form, her half-transformed fishtail flickering into view. She looked on the verge of death. If forced into the arena, she'd be torn apart by the other beasts. Hearing Kane's words, Father's brow furrowed deeply as he asked in confusion, Kane, are you out of your mind? That mermaid looks far too frail to be any real help to you. Kane stood his ground. Father, I've set my heart on this mermaid. Just indulge me this once. The way Kane reacted, coupled with that burning gaze he fixed on Cressida, convinced me he'd been reborn too. Kane and I are blood brothers, with me being a year older than him. I was a child prodigy back then. The heir my father pinned his highest hopes on, but at 12, enemies came seeking vengeance and kidnapped both my mother and me. I barely escaped that hellhole, though at the cost of losing both my legs. Mother wasn't so fortunate, she fell victim to our enemies. My parents were deeply in love, and father couldn't bear to accept mother's death. He blamed me for failing to protect mother. The Song family had been in the arms trade for generations, valuing martial prowess above all in their heirs. Though gifted, I became a wheelchair-bound cripple, utterly unfit for public life, so father gave up on me and poured all his efforts into grooming Kane instead. Over the years, I grew accustomed to father's blatant favoritism toward him. Now, the slightest whimper from Kane makes father cave helplessly. Kane gleefully raised his auction paddle, staff quickly approached, collected payment, and promptly removed the chains from Cressida. They respectfully escorted her down and handed her over to Kane. Cressida kept her eyes downcast, looking utterly pitiful. Ignoring her injuries, she knelt down and bowed deeply to Kane. Young master, my name is Cressida. Thank you for saving me. I will serve you well from now on. All right, all right. Kane was overjoyed by the flattery. He helped Cressida to her feet and pulled her into an embrace. My lovely, you'd better help me out in the future. I'm counting on you. Cressida knows. What a picture-perfect scene of mutual affection. I couldn't help but sneer at Kane's smug expression. My dear brother, cherish this venomous mermaid as your precious treasure. I await the day you learn the truth and meet your gruesome end. As for me, I pointed at the bloodied figure in the arena, still standing tall and unbroken. Luna, the white wolf who'd rather endure the whip than bend her knee. Last life, Kane claimed her. Now that none would take her, then I choose this white wolf. With the werewolf's keen senses. Her aloof eyes snapped toward me the moment I finished speaking, her gaze burned with resentment and defiance. Kane burst into undisguised mocking laughter upon hearing my choice. Dear brother, everyone knows werewolves are the most untamable prideful creatures. How could a wheelchair-bound cripple like you ever command her respect? Father fell silent, disapproval written across his face. My hands rested on my knees. Everything below that point might as well not exist. Yes, I'm disabled. I'm the worthless disgrace of the Song family, but fate's decree doesn't mean I'll stop fighting. Even in this second life, I still can't claim the family head seat. Somewhere in the cosmos, I sense Luna could alter my destiny. I'm confident I can earn her trust and make her work for me. Then step by step, I'll reclaim everything I've lost. Father, would you give me another chance? I swear I have a way to tame the white wolf. After Mother's passing, the distance between father and me grew wider with each passing day. All these years in the Song household, I endured countless scornful looks without ever uttering a word of complaint, nor did I ever show weakness before father. This marks the first time I've ever made a request of him. Perhaps it was the guilt in his heart that made my father waver. He stared at me for several long seconds, then nodded, so I raised my paddle and bought Luna at the highest bid of the auction. Upon returning to the Song family estate, Kane didn't even join dinner in the main residence. He immediately dragged Cressida off to his private courtyard. Moments later, Kane's agonized screams echoed from the courtyard. Servants soon scurried in and out carrying various hemostatic supplies and medical equipment. The butler Shaw rushed in dripping with sweat, interrupting father's meal with urgent news. Master, disaster has struck. Young Master Kane has stabbed himself in the stomach. He's bleeding terribly, too. Father slammed the table and stood abruptly, sending his soup bowl crashing to the floor. He hastily pushed the butler aside and strode out. Just steps away from the mansion, he saw Kane approaching as if nothing had happened. His father eyed the blood on him and asked urgently, Kane, are you all right? Kane pulled aside his blood-stained shirt, revealing completely unblemished skin beneath. Father, I'm fine. I was merely testing Cressida's true capabilities. The father's scrutinizing gaze fell upon Cressida standing beside Kane, demure, submissive, and appearing utterly fragile. Only then did she begin explaining to the father in soft, measured tones. She is the most skilled mermaid healer of her generation in the merfolk tribe. Her tears possess extraordinary healing powers, capable of reviving the dead and regenerating flesh, no matter how severe the injury. She can restore it to perfect condition. You actually have such remarkable abilities. Father's gaze toward Cressida instantly changed. After all, the Song family's arms-dealing business required constant navigation between legal and underworld circles. Dangerous situations often carried significant injury risks. With Cressida now in the picture, she could not only protect Kane from serious harm but also assist other members of the Song family. A smug grin spread across Kane's face as he couldn't resist showing off. Father, I told you from the start, my choice would never be wrong. I just wonder if brother can even make proper use of that white wolf with such fine talents. As they spoke, both father and son cast sidelong glances in my direction. The incident happened so suddenly that nearly all the servants in the mansion had rushed to Kane's side. Father left in a hurry, while Luna, being stubborn and petulant, refused to push my wheelchair. Left with no choice, I had to awkwardly maneuver the wheelchair out of the main house by myself. It took me quite a while to finally catch up behind father. While Kane was thriving, I was left struggling alone like some helpless cripple. Father snorted through his nose at my pitiful state. A son of the Song family can't even keep a woman in line. Kane clearly enjoyed watching me get scolded, though he pretended to be concerned. Father, brother isn't willing either. Please give him some time. The picture-perfect father and son walked away, leaving me standing alone. Only Cressida, trailing behind Kane, stole a furtive glance at me as she passed. She'd done her utmost to play the role of a helpless lamb, yet I could still see the shadow in her eyes at a glance. Things progressed more smoothly than I'd anticipated. In my past life, I discovered Cressida possessed remarkable healing abilities. It happened during an arms deal a month later. He was a regular customer we'd done business with many times. This shouldn't have happened, yet that day, he actually tried to steal both the money and the goods. Trapped in my wheelchair, I couldn't escape, just watched helplessly as the knife plunged into my stomach. I thought I was done for. But then Cressida suddenly burst into tears, singing through tears. Tears fell upon my wounds. Healing the flesh bit by bit, the melodious voice eased all the pain in my body. Later, I awoke in my own bed within the Song family estate. Cressida told me it was her mermaid healing arts that brought me back from death's door. She even offered to share one of her people's most guarded secrets with me. This ancient ritual wouldn't just restore my legs, it would grant me strength rivaling that of beast folk in my past life. The mere promise of walking again made me agree to her procedure without hesitation. Later, I miraculously regained my health and even developed an exceptionally robust physique. My father was astonished by my transformation. Combined with my innate intelligence and some strategic maneuvering, I gradually reclaimed the power that Cain had taken from me over the years. Yet all my careful planning was ultimately undone by Cressida. Her so-called secret art of empowerment was nothing but a sham. It demands life essence, it costs your very soul. By her design, I'll be rotting from within and torn apart before half a year passes. Not a shred of evidence could be found to prove her involvement, a forbidden technique that brings agonizing death. Cain was practically begging Cressida to perform it. The very first day after bringing them back to the Song household, he was already courting death. Cain, you're the one handing me the family leadership on a silver platter. Then I won't hold back, I'll be waiting for the good news of your untimely demise. Father's birthday banquet in half a month. Business associates from all directions were invited to gather at the Song residence. Cain had barely stepped outside the Song residence these past 2 weeks. He spent entire days secluded in the courtyard with Cressida, practicing God knows what. When I next saw him at the banquet, he was completely transformed. His bulging chest and arm muscles threatened to burst through his tailored suit, broad shoulders, narrow waist, and powerful thighs. He even stood several inches taller. The guests were stunned at the sight of Cain. A merchant acquainted with his father gazed at Cain in awe. Lao Song, has your Cain hit another growth spurt? He looks completely different from 6 months ago. Other guests gathered around, showering compliments. Absolutely. That physique is more impressive than some orcs I've seen. Boss Song, the apple certainly didn't fall far from the tree. The father beamed with pride, patting Cain's shoulder with evident satisfaction. Cain, why don't you tell everyone yourself? Cain stepped aside, revealing a bashful woman who'd been hidden behind his towering frame. It was none other than Cressida, dressed to absolute perfection. Cain scooped Cressida up like a chick, hugging her tight against his chest with obvious pride. Heh, this is Cressida, my wife. She's the best healer among the merfolk, this rugged physique of mine, all thanks to her care. Cressida buried her face against Cain, flushing crimson with embarrassment. I just can't accept this, young Master Cain. There are so many people watching, why so shy? You're already my woman, what's wrong with a little hug? Cain pulled Cressida even tighter against him, his smug expression growing more pronounced. Cressida assumed an obedient, submissive demeanor. The crowd finally understood and exclaimed with envy, we've heard many beastmen possess extraordinary skills. Who would have thought such a treasure would end up with the young master? What a fortunate turn of events. Indeed, it seems we can only stand by and envy the young master. Flushed with praise, Cain glanced sideways at me, the lone dissonant note in the cheerful gathering. A mischievous grin spread across his face as he deliberately redirected everyone's attention toward me. This is nothing compared to the beastkin my brother brought home. Now that's impressive. Everyone knows wolfkin are fierce warriors, but my brother managed to recruit the most formidable of them all, a white wolf. Only when properly tamed can it become a true asset. The crowd finally turned their attention to me. Cain's mermaid beast folk had already demonstrated such astonishing abilities moments ago. Hearing him praise my white wolf like that, the crowd couldn't help but grow eager with anticipation. Hey, why didn't the young master bring out that white wolf today? We're all dying to see it. Exactly, I heard top-quality white wolves are priceless. I'd love to get a look too. I faced their expectant gazes, yet couldn't give them an answer. For the past fortnight, Luna remained as stubborn as ever, completely ignoring my commands. She's gone missing again on the birthday banquet day of all days. How could I possibly produce her for all the guests to see? Father's cheerful expression faded when he saw my silence. Noticing I came alone, he began to inquire, Elliot, where's Luna? I was about to answer truthfully, Father, Luna is. Before I could finish, a servant rushed into the banquet hall in haste. I recognized the servant as one who'd served in Cain's household for years. He frantically gestured to someone outside the door, and when I looked over, 4 or 5 hulking servants were dragging in Luna with her hands and feet bound. Luna snarled and thrashed violently, her wolf ears fully manifesting in distress. She must have been brutally beaten. Let me go, Luna screamed, but the servants turned a deaf ear. Confined to my wheelchair, I couldn't intervene. My face darkened as I confronted Cain. What's the meaning of this, little brother? Cain put on an innocent face and looked at his father. Look, father. Now Big Brother's blaming me too, he began explaining with exaggerated earnestness. That white wolf Luna, completely untamed, she's escaped 15 times in just these past 2 weeks. If this were my orc, I'd beat it every time it got caught. But you, brother, not only do you fail to tame your own orc, you even let her escape. Just now my servants told me Luna ran away again, so I immediately sent men to retrieve her for you. Instead of thanking me for bailing you out, you blame me. Is that any way to behave? What? Humanity has always relied on oppression to subjugate orcs. Countless disobedient orcs have been beaten to death as examples. The other guests found Kane's explanation quite reasonable. To their eyes, the younger son of this household was stealing the spotlight through his orcs, yet the eldest son couldn't even manage basic taming. The difference became glaringly obvious. Seeing the guests whispering among themselves, the father felt utterly humiliated. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the servants and commanded, "Take this unruly beast-man away and give him 50 lashes. In a panic, I quickly intervened. Father, Luna is my orc after all. Could you leave her punishment to me? Oh, how would you handle this? After a moment's thought, I resolved to speak my mind. Father, I believe humans should treat orcs as equals. Oppression and domestication won't earn the orcs true allegiance. We must understand their thoughts and desires." Nonsense. Father's face darkened completely as he cut me off with a cold snort. My younger brother burst into laughter, heedless of the guests present, and openly mocked me. "Brother, such absurd notions are truly unheard of. Does your pity for orcs stem from your own crippled inferiority?" Thus the celebratory banquet ended in bitter discord. In the end, Luna still received the lashing, though my pleading reduced it by 20 strokes. The white wolf was physically robust with remarkable healing abilities. Truth be told, such whipping wouldn't inflict serious harm on Luna, yet I still brought specially formulated wound salve to check on her in her quarters. Pushing the door open, I found Luna lying face down on the bed, clearly in a foul mood. Recognizing me, she awkwardly turned her face away with sundra defiance. "What brings you here?" I placed the healing salve by her bedside, gently lifting the lid to release its fresh herbal fragrance. "The whip might not hurt you much, but it will inevitably leave scars. This wound medicine helps with scarring. Let me apply it for you." "No." Luna snatched the wound medicine, slapped my hand away, and wouldn't let me touch her. She kept her head down in silence for a moment before suddenly speaking up. "Oh, young master, just call me Elliot," I gently insisted. Luna gave a reluctant before correcting herself. "Okay. Elliot, I just wanted to ask, were you serious about what you said at the banquet today? I mean, all that talk about equality between humans and orcs." The corner of my mouth lifted as I watched Luna's still partially wolfish tail. That tail was swaying gently now, as if showing affection toward its owner. "That's exactly what I was thinking, so don't worry, I won't force you to do anything against your will, even though I've purchased you. You remain free to be yourself." Luna froze in stunned silence after hearing what I said. That's when I realized she wasn't as rebellious and prickly as she appeared. When she let her guard down, there was an unexpectedly adorable dorkiness about her. The next morning, I woke up in my own room. The first thing I did was inquire about the maid Luna's activities today. The servant hesitated for a long moment before finally speaking. "Young master." "Madam Luna, she didn't try to escape today." I raised an eyebrow, somewhat surprised. "Where is she now?" The words barely left my mouth when the door swung open. Luna entered with a tray, her expression clearly displeased. She set the tray on the table as I gave it a quick glance. "Scorched eggs, half-raw beef, and those charcoal black toast slices. I made this breakfast for you with my own hands." Touched, with a forced smile, I picked up a piece of egg and took a bite before offering hollow praise. "Not bad." With a proud expression, Luna came over and sat on my bedside. I casually asked her between bites of my leisurely breakfast, "No running away today. What made you decide to make me breakfast?" Luna fell silent for a moment, as if recalling some painful memory. Her eyes were red and swollen, so I reached up to wipe her tears. She finally spoke in a faint voice. "Both my sisters and my mother were taken by humans. Their fate remains unknown to this day. Our White Wolf clan is powerful, which makes humans hunt us to bolster their forces, since childhood. I've witnessed too many of my kind suffering at human hands." Her voice suddenly rose sharply. I despise you all, but you seem different from them." Luna turned her head, her sapphire eyes meeting mine. "You never meant to hurt me, did you?" I gently embraced her, soothingly patting her back. "That's right, I won't hurt you, not now, not ever. Will you trust me?" Warm tears fell on my back as Luna asked in a muffled voice. "Well, there's one more thing I'd like to do." Luna may be the most formidable fighter among her generation of white wolf females, yet she's never been fond of violence. This battle-hardened warrior has a surprisingly girly side. I've always envied human women, getting to wear gorgeous dresses and sparkling jewelry. I've always dreamed that one day I could look truly beautiful too. Her childish words left me torn between laughter and exasperation. Nothing easier. "I'll take you shopping, that day." The yin master took White Wolf on a whirlwind tour of every clothing store in town. The whole lot was packed up and sent back to the Song residence. Everyone says the yin master has lost his head over that White Wolf, who in their right mind would pamper a beastman instead of taming it. Luna completely let her guard down around me. She gleefully tried on those beautiful dresses again and again. She had the servants bring a mirror. Admiring her radiant new reflection, Luna burst into tears. If only my sisters could wear such lovely dresses too, Elliot, I miss them. I reached out and wiped away her falling tears. If they're still alive, I'll help you find them. Really? Luna's eyes suddenly lit up. You'd really help me. You're my wife. Of course I will. I nodded solemnly. Luna stared at me for a long moment, biting her lip before leaning closer. Elliot, actually, your leg injury isn't beyond saving. To repay me, Luna shared her White Wolf clan's ancestral healing secret. Injuries are common for beast folk. I've seen white wolves on death's door saved by this technique. This technique is our White Wolf clan's best kept secret. It must never fall into outsiders' hands. I'm trusting you enough to heal your wounds. You must keep this secret for me. I never expected Luna to surprise me like this. In our past life, she never got along with Cain. No amount of beatings or torture could make them cooperate with him. Cain was utterly frustrated watching Luna's formidable combat prowess go unused. That's why he adored my Cressida, gentle as a dove with miraculous healing hands. He burned with bitter envy. That's why in this life I abandoned Luna without hesitation and chose Cressida. In his eyes, though Luna was powerful, she remained untamable. I was bound to suffer through endless hardships, but how could Cain understand that orcs, like humans, need empathy and love to be truly reached? Just because he couldn't make Luna submit doesn't mean I can't, so Luna and I began secret treatment sessions. I claimed my leg injury had flared up and stayed behind closed doors. I put a hold on all the business dealings I normally handled for the Song family. Luna moved into my room to tend to my injuries. The White Wolf clan's healing methods are brutally direct. They first methodically shatter every inch of damaged bones and tendons, then drench the wounds with a special herbal mixture blended with the heart's blood of a white wolf, for, as the scabs form, the flesh and bones beneath gradually knit back together. The process was excruciating, beyond what any ordinary person could endure. During that period, my room would often echo with my muffled cries of agony at night. By the third day, I was completely drained and feeble. The servants whispered that I was physically unfit yet still forcing myself on Luna. One day, Cain caught Luna and me taking some fresh air in the garden during daylight. He looked down at me with a sneer and mocked. Never heard of a man screaming louder than the woman during sex. If you can't perform, quit wasting effort and accept being a cripple. Luna was provoked by Cain's vicious remarks and nearly started a fight with him. I quickly held her back. Cain burst into laughter. Sis-in-law Luna, if you think my brother's no good, you can always come to me instead. Otherwise, how miserable would it be to live like a grass widow, don't you think? Luna was trembling with rage, and even after Cain had gone far away, she was still fuming on my behalf. Elliot, you shouldn't have stopped me from hitting him. I shook my head. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Now is not the time. The higher he flies, the harder he'll fall. After another fortnight of daily, uninterrupted treatment, my legs had recovered enough to stand without wheelchair assistance, though my meridians still occasionally blocked up, requiring Luna's massage therapy for relief. A single massage session takes nearly 2 hours, yet Luna never complains. I feel her bonelessly soft hands working on my legs, though the White Wolf clan is physically robust. Their females mostly possess fair and delicate skin. A pair of hands now roamed over my legs that had regained sensation. My heart skipped a beat involuntarily. Luna noticed my restraint, her ears turning crimson as she shot me a glance. You. I gazed at her with longing, our breaths mingling as I drew closer. In the end, I stopped myself. Let's call it a night, I said, my voice thick with restrained desire. Then I watched with amusement as Luna fled, her face flushed crimson. She's really something, counting the days. It's almost time for that gang shootout that changed Cain's and my fate in our previous life. Cain's physique has become noticeably more robust compared to just half a month ago. When Cressida enhanced my physique in our past life, she probably held back to avoid killing me too quickly and raising suspicions. Physical enhancements were only performed about once a week, but Cain had always been arrogant and impatient by nature, having suffered in his past life. He was desperate to eliminate me, his greatest threat, as soon as possible in this rebirth. He pestered Cressida daily for physical enhancements. Now he's grown into a hulking brute, resembling a brawny orc more than a human. Yet father couldn't be more pleased with Cain's transformation. The Song family hadn't produced such a physically imposing heir in generations. For the Song family's arms business, having such an intimidating presence at the helm brought nothing but advantages. I remain as feeble as ever, even the Song family servants say so, with Cressida by his side. The Yen master is unstoppable, he's undoubtedly the next family head, yet here I am with Luna, a formidable white wolf beastkin, and I fail to utilize her potential. All I think about is what's between my legs, utterly hopeless. Word of this reached my father's ears, careless words may land on attentive ears. His disappointment in me grew deeper. The annual business negotiation with the Ma family gang was fast approaching. He summoned me and Kane, then said to my face, "Elliot, I truly believed you wanted to change when you had me buy Luna for you at the Coliseum, but you've let me down terribly. In that case, Kane will take full charge of this year's arms deal with the Vest gang. You're relieved from this operation permanently." No sooner had father spoken than Kane interjected, "Father, though my elder brother may be somewhat dissolute, he remains one of our Song family's rightful heirs. To replace him so abruptly would make our family appear divided in outsiders' eyes. Perhaps we could let him lead this transaction as usual, with me accompanying him. Everyone knows I'm in my prime now. If anything happens, I'll be your safeguard, brother." Father nodded repeatedly with approval, praising him with a smile. "Kane, you're a generous and responsible lad." Always thinking of the family, his expression turned icy when his gaze fell upon me. "Did you hear me? For your brother's sake, I'll give you one last chance. I hope you'll wise up and not let me down again." I lowered my gaze and nodded in agreement. My stubborn father had no idea that Kane was anything but a devoted brother acting for the family's benefit. He clearly knew this venture would inevitably erupt into violent clashes. He wouldn't risk himself in vain while letting me walk away unscathed. In this lifetime, he believes I lack Cressida's healing presence by my side. Perhaps this time, I might just perish in the crossfire for good. Then he'll ascend directly to the family head's throne, on the day of the exchange. Just like in the previous life, the Ma family envoys drew concealed weapons after 3 words of disagreement, stabbing straight at our men. The frontline enforcers collapsed instantly. By the time we processed what happened, the scene had already descended into bloody chaos. Kane remained eerily calm, retreating step by step without lifting a finger, coldly watching each of the Song family's men meet their gruesome end. A steel plate stood before my position, offering potential cover, but my wheelchair made me a conspicuous target, and I was quickly spotted by one of the Ma gang's enforcers, gritting his teeth. He swung his machete straight at me. Kane was standing close by, watching helplessly as the man charged toward me. With a sinister grin, he tilted his head and silently mouthed words at me. I recognized what he said. "Sweet brother, just die peacefully for me." Kane rigged the game. In the previous life, though the deal handler rebelled, few actually joined his mutiny, but in this life, nearly half the Ma gang clashed with the Song faction's men. Strangely, some Ma gang members kept their distance from Kane despite being within striking range. They clearly made some kind of deal behind the scenes. My mind raced, these thoughts flashing through my head in an instant. The next moment, just before the man's long saber came down, I pushed hard with both hands, shoving the wheelchair beneath me backward. The wheelchair was flung away, and I stood tall on my own 2 feet, defiant. With the testimony from the Song family's enforcers, Kane turned deathly pale. Several more enforcers were questioned, all giving nearly identical accounts. Kane had apparently planned to silence me permanently during today's chaos. Against all odds, I not only cheated death but also avoided becoming disabled. Just like in my previous life, I recall in my past life, the Ma gang similarly pulled a sudden betrayal. Now that I think about it, Kane must have been pulling strings behind the scenes. Little did he expect that my near-fatal injury would turn out to be a blessing in disguise. This time around, he's fallen to me once again. Kane knew the game was up. Sabotaging business and harming his own brother were unforgivable crimes. Even his father's past favoritism couldn't save him from severe punishment this time. He dropped to his knees with a thud, crawling toward his father to beg for mercy. "Father, please spare me just this once. I must have been out of my mind. I swear I'll never do it again, Father." Father remained stone-faced, unmoved by Kane's pleas for mercy. He turned his gaze toward me. "Elliot, now that you've recovered, it's time you shouldered the responsibilities of the Song family. Starting today, I'm handing over all business lines previously managed by Kane to you. Do your best, don't let me down." Kane was completely stunned by his father's announcement. He knew his father was always strict, but never expected such harsh punishment from the man who usually indulged him. "They've stripped him of power and cast him aside like a pawn." Rage surged through him, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. The meridians beneath his skin pulsed violently, as if something was struggling to break free. I noticed Cressida's expression shift, a flicker of delight crossing her face. Seems he's been pushing his physical limits lately, giving Cressida ample opportunity to build up toxins in his system. Now those poisons are flooding his body as his mental state collapses. Kane's living on borrowed time. After the Ma family incident, I started reorganizing the operations Kane used to handle. Only after going through the books did I realize the businesses he's been managing these years not only failed to turn a profit, but actually incurred several major losses. Truth be told, he's nowhere near as capable as I am by nature. But he didn't dare let father know about the losses. So he's been operating in legal gray areas to cover the shortfall. This is precisely why he saw me as his greatest threat. He feared the day his misdeeds would come to light, and our father would put me in charge of his business operations. Yet despite all his precautions, that day inevitably arrived. I presented the meticulously prepared financial statements to our father, carefully explaining the discrepancies in the accounts. The father was absolutely furious. Kane had been deceiving him for years, putting on an act of competence and intelligence. How could a father who saw himself as the supreme authority of the Song family ever accept such betrayal? He ordered Kane to be placed under house arrest in the villa, forbidding any comings and goings without his permission. Seizing my father's trust, I quickly made my mark in the business world. Wealthy merchants who used to fawn over the young master Song now heard the winds were changing in our household. They began extending olive branches my way. After several collaborations, some merchants became quite familiar with me. They sincerely praised me for being far more steady and reliable than Kane could ever be, said it's a shame I've been housebound all these years because of my leg condition. Had I taken over the Song family business earlier, Kane wouldn't even stand a chance. I couldn't agree more. That brother of mine, arrogant beyond measure and petty to boot. That's why he squandered 2 lifetimes of golden opportunities. Between securing my own footing, I made sure to pay my dear brother a sickbed visit. When I went to Kane's villa, I specifically instructed the servants not to announce my arrival. I walked right in unannounced. This should be the time when he takes his medicine. He's been ill ever since that day when his power was stripped and his schemes exposed, causing him to cough up blood and rage. 5. He fell gravely ill and required Cressida's constant care. I heard Cressida forces him to drink 3 bowls of special tonic daily, claiming it speeds recovery, but knowing Cressida, I suspect that tonic isn't exactly beneficial. Sure enough, I'd just reached Kane's doorway when, through the slightly ajar door, I saw Kane's exposed skin covered in severe festering wounds. Scabs formed only to rot away again, leaving his entire body a mangled mess of flesh and blood. He looked near death. His breathing shallow and weak, his eyes were closed now, appearing to be asleep. Cressida sat by his bedside, holding an empty white porcelain soup bowl in her hands. Perhaps seeing Kane fast asleep in the perpetually empty room, Cressida rarely showed her true self. "Oh Kane, aren't you supposed to be the lofty human above us all? Why can't I speak or move my hands now? How's our mermaid clan's secret technique working for you? Seems you'll die without ever realizing this power comes at the cost of your life. Do you even know, we merfolk created this very poison to fight back against you humans. Every merechild knows such terrible power comes only at the cost of death, yet generation after generation keeps taking it, even knowing it'll rot our flesh and bring agonizing death. Our bravest mermen still choose this fate willingly for our people, and you still treat it as some health supplement. This is the price you humans pay for hunting us down. You deserve this." So this was the real reason Cressida had always hated me. She didn't just hate me, she loathed the Song family and every human who treated beastfolk lives as worthless. Unable to resist, I pushed the door open gently and spoke up. "So this is what you've been thinking all along." Cressida turned at the sound, and seeing it was me, went on high alert. "Young master, you heard that." I approached her slowly. "It's all right, I've always known, you knew." Cressida narrowed her eyes with dangerous intensity. "Since when did you see through me?" I chuckled softly. "From the very beginning." Cressida looked at me in confusion. In her mind, I was the absolute villain. The Song family only treated her well because she was useful to them. "But you, why have you never exposed me?" The moment she asked me, I thought long and hard. In my past life, I married Cressida. She healed my wounds, restored my legs, and we shared those seemingly tender daily moments together. The truth is, I never truly hated her. Put yourself in my shoes. If an enemy harmed my family, slaughtered my kin, then took me captive to live out my days in servitude, how could I not hate? The oppression of orcs by humans is a historical burden passed down through generations. This hatred cannot be resolved overnight. The orcs were never at fault. It was always humanity. All they ever wanted was something as simple as freedom. Lost in thought, I noticed Kane's eyelashes flutter. He was supposed to be fast asleep. It dawned on me, he must have been awake for a while. Seeing both me and Cressida present, and knowing he stood no chance, Kane pretended to be asleep. I subtly pointed at Kane's eyelashes, and Cressida immediately noticed something was off. She mouthed the words, "What should we do?" Smiling, I produced the pre-prepared mute potion. I was supposed to use this dose on Kane today. Turned out to be quite a bargain. In the end, I didn't do it myself. Cressida stepped in and poisoned Kane with a muting agent instead. Now his limbs are festering, leaving him unable to write or even speak in his own defense. He's completely dependent on mermaid caretakers for daily needs, and without father's orders, he'd likely rot away unnoticed in that courtyard. Kane has completely lost the ability to compete with me. Meanwhile, I've been steadily consolidating my position in the Song household after Kane's death. I formally inherited the position of family head from my father. I propelled the Song family's arms trade business to new heights of prosperity. Since taking charge of the Song family, I've issued a series of decrees concerning orc rights. At least within the Song family, orcs' rights and interests are now properly safeguarded. As for Cressida, after Kane's death I honored her wish and let her return to the merfolk. Before leaving, she seemed to sense something. She told me she'd had a dream. In that dream, she was my wife, and in the end, she caused my death. I chuckled. It's just a dream, why take it so seriously? But I still owe you an apology, Cressida said. I suspect she might have regained memories from her past life too, but none of that matters now. I watched Cressida walk away from the Song residence until she disappeared from sight. Turning back, I gently touched Luna's noticeably rounded belly. Look at this little one, already so big for their age. When they're born, they'll surely be a chubby little bundle of joy. Luna looked at me with a gentle smile. Well then, I hope he'll be born into a world where humans and beastfolk can coexist as equals. Story 2. All 4 of us girls in the dorm room have been reborn, and one of us is even pregnant. With the apocalypse just 5 hours away, in our past lives, we supported each other in the struggle to survive the apocalypse but ultimately perished at the hands of zombies. This time, we are determined to strive to live to 101. When I woke up, I was lying on the bed in my college dorm room, and my 3 roommates, Gabriella, Sophia, and Allison, were slowly sitting up as well. After staring at each other in disbelief for a moment, we confirmed that we had indeed been reborn. It was now 10 in the morning, and the apocalypse would arrive in 5 hours. Our first thought was to go home. But we were all from different provinces, and even if we bought tickets now, we wouldn't make it in time. In our past life, we had narrowly escaped danger by hiding in a restaurant private dining room, but we struggled immensely due to a shortage of food and water. Later, in an effort to survive, we ventured out and lived on the edge, hiding and dodging zombies, but still met our fate being bitten to death 6 months later. We should take shelter here and stock up on supplies, holding out as long as we can, I suggested. Gabriella nodded. I agree. But our door is as thin as paper, it won't keep zombies out. Plus, we don't have much money. How are we going to buy supplies? Even if we had the money, our dorm is so small. Where would we even put everything? Should we rent a place now? Sophia also expressed her worries. With only 5 hours left, there's no time to rent a place and buy supplies. I looked around the dorm, then tapped on the wall. Next door is the activity room. We can store supplies there for now. This wall isn't load-bearing, so we can make a hole in it later to get through. As for security, let's go to a building materials market, buy some lumber and tools, and fortify the doors and windows ourselves. Having survived the apocalypse before, we knew this was the quickest and easiest solution to implement. However, this process would definitely attract attention, but with limited time, we had to face whatever came our way. During our discussion, only Allison remained silent. Because she was pregnant, in our past life, her boyfriend was about to study abroad. During their farewell, they got carried away, resulting in an unexpected pregnancy. A month into the apocalypse, Allison started showing signs of pregnancy. The child, like the apocalypse, arrived unexpectedly, leaving us all in disarray. I'm sorry, I can't hold you back anymore. Thank you for taking care of me in our past life. Allison spoke firmly, then transferred all her money to us. Take this money to buy supplies and survive. If there's an afterlife, I will repay your kindness. I grabbed her hand. We're in this together. We promise to be aunts to your baby. Exactly. We survived the hardships of our past life. With prior knowledge this time, it will definitely be better. Don't be afraid, Allison. Gabriella and Sophia reassured her. Allison was emotionally unstable. We understood her worries and fears, but we couldn't afford to waste time fretting about the future, too. Our first step was to pool money. We took out what we had saved, including money from our parents, and borrowed freely from credit cards and lending platforms since we wouldn't need to repay. In half an hour, we managed to gather 83,000 yuan. We immediately split up to carry out our tasks. Gabriella went to the building materials market to buy materials, tools, and some suitable weapons. Sophia and I took responsibility for the life supplies. I contacted the water delivery person for 50 barrels of purified water. He thought I was joking until I sent over half the payment, and he happily arranged the delivery. Meanwhile, Sophia ordered various long-lasting food items online. which would be delivered by couriers, lightening our burden significantly. Allison, you stay in the dorm to receive the supplies and don't leave. Make sure all our laptops and power banks are fully charged. You're our lifeline. We devised this method to keep Allison back. Finally, Allison nodded. Go ahead without worry. I'll handle things here. Sophia grabbed the falling bag, and we hurriedly climbed up the stairs, our hearts heavy with the thought of what was about to unfold. There was a large supermarket just outside the school, where Sophia and I, dragging our suitcases, went to stock up. It was exam week, and most students were either taking exams or studying in the library. The campus and dorms were deserted, except for some bedsheets and duvet covers fluttering colorfully on clotheslines, reflecting the students' mood as they prepared for the upcoming holiday. On the way, we called our parents to warn them of an imminent emergency and advised them to rush home and stock up on supplies. However, they didn't believe us. They couldn't see how there could be an emergency when everything seemed so peaceful and harmonious. We couldn't explain further. We just kept insisting that if they noticed any danger around 3 p.m., they should not run around but find a place to hide immediately. After informing our parents, we reached the supermarket first. We headed to the section with rice, flour, oil, and vacuum-packed foods, taking as much as we could carry. Our second trip was to the fuel section where we took all the solid fuel canisters we could find, filling up 4 suitcases to take back. When we returned to the dorm, the water delivery person had just arrived, hauling buckets of water up to the 4th floor activity room. The dorm supervisor, although puzzled by the amount of water, thankfully didn't ask too many questions. On our third trip to the supermarket, we picked up hygiene-related items such as toothpaste, toothbrushes, sanitary pads, underwear, trash bags, water filters, disinfectants, and masks. By the time we finished shopping, it was already 11:30 a.m., and Gabriella had returned from the hardware market. We moved all the materials and tools to the dorm together. What are all these supplies for? The dorm supervisor finally asked, unable to hold back her curiosity this time. We have a model project for our architecture course. I lied. She looked suspicious. You can work on your models, but remember, no high-powered electrical devices are allowed. I'll confiscate them. We nodded repeatedly while hiding a toolbox that contained a drill behind us. The food we ordered online kept arriving, attracting the attention of some classmates who gathered at our door. Alyssa, why aren't you studying? What are you up to? A classmate asked, looking at their youthful faces. Knowing they would soon turn into zombies, I felt a pang of sadness and vaguely warned, we're worried about an emergency. You might want to stock up too, and don't wander around later. You guys are acting so strange. How could there be an emergency? We have exams tomorrow morning, and I don't want to fail, they said before leaving. Forget it. No one would believe this kind of thing. Let's go. Sophia sighed in resignation. Although we knew what was coming, we were powerless to stop it. At noon, with a checklist to cover any oversights, we returned to the supermarket to pick up anything we had missed. Leaving the supermarket, I noticed a motorcycle shop next door and decided to buy 4 helmets and sets of abrasion-resistant clothes and gloves. We knew we'd eventually have to venture out for food and water, and these could help reduce the risk of getting bitten and infected. At 1:30 p.m., with only an hour left before the apocalypse began, we made our last stops at a baby store and a pharmacy. In the baby store, based on online advice from mothers, we bought formula, baby clothes, blankets, diapers, bottles, and maternity packs, among other necessities. We even downloaded videos on childbirth, not knowing whether the little life would have the fortune to arrive, but we prepared for everything. As we were leaving, we also grabbed 2 child-sized toilets, which we could use with trash bags for our sanitation needs later. Finally, at the pharmacy, understanding that if no help arrived within 9 months, we would be delivering the baby ourselves, we stocked up on various supplements, medicines, scissors, gauze, alcohol, and tourniquets, everything we might need, spending every last penny. At 2:40 p.m., we returned to the dorm in our car. Most students were out for exams, and the dorm building was eerily quiet. We climbed the stairs, laden with bags, when suddenly my hand felt lighter. Looking back, it was a passing girl who helped me lift the bag. Thank you, I can manage, I declined, a bit wary. The girl flashed a bright smile. No worries, just lending a hand. Beside her, another girl with short hair was helping Sophia with the baby formula. Why are you still drinking baby formula? It's not suitable for us. You can buy formula specifically for students, the short-haired girl said with a laugh. Okay, we'll switch next time, I responded. They helped us carry the items up the stairs to our dorm, heading up to the 6th floor where the horticultural department's dorms were located. After putting everything away and locking up the activity room, we silently returned to our dorm. At the age of 20, we awaited the end of days. At 3 o'clock, the clouds piled up in the sky, obscuring the sun. A scream tore through the campus, quickly followed by a second and third. The infected indiscriminately bit those around them. And those bitten soon turned into the walking dead. Allison curled up in bed, clutching her stomach, while we called our parents, urging them to stay hidden and not to wander around. Then I grabbed an electric drill from the toolbox, plugged it in, and Gabriella and Sophia instinctively picked up wooden planks. We began to nail the doors and windows shut in unison. Halfway through boarding up a window, a bloody hand appeared. It was Beatrice from the next room, who had been bitten. "Something's happened outside. I forgot my keys. Let me in to hide," she pleaded, fear evident in her eyes. Dark lines were already spreading across her neck, creeping towards her brain. She had at most 5 minutes before her consciousness would be completely gone, turning her into a zombie. "Beatrice, call your parents," I suggested. It seemed the kindest way to say goodbye. Beatrice paused, then looked at her reflection in the window. Seeing the terrifying lines, she began to scream frantically. She desperately banged on our door. "Let me in, please let me in." We couldn't open the door. All we could do was continue securing it while feeling utterly helpless. Beatrice's cries gradually quieted. Through the crack of the door, I saw her struggling to dial a number on her phone, quickly getting through. "Beatrice, hide quickly, something's happened outside." A worried voice came from the other end. "Mom," Beatrice called out weakly, then her phone clattered to the ground. Her eyes turned gray, devoid of any human expression. "Beatrice, Beatrice," her mother continued to call from the other end, but Beatrice could no longer hear. Her body swayed as she scratched at our door, drawn by the scent of the living, wanting to come in. We didn't have time to mourn for her. We just had to keep nailing the door shut. The news reported on the situation today. A calamity was unfolding globally. The government urged everyone to seek shelter nearby and wait for rescue. We contacted our parents again, relieved to find they were still alive. My mother cried, fearful that we might never see each other again. My father, a former soldier, was much calmer, advising me on how to fortify our house and stay safe. He reminded us to stay united, especially in times like these. "Allison, try contacting Alexander," I urged her. Allison was an orphan, supported by Alexander's family for her living and education. They were childhood sweethearts. Last time, we all managed to contact our families, except for her and Alexander. "Okay," Allison snapped back to reality and sent a voice message to Alexander. This time, the call connected. Upon learning that Allison was pregnant, Alexander urgently advised, wait for me to come back and get married." But he was on the other side of the ocean, separated from Allison by vast distances, making his return no easy feat. "Don't come back, stay hidden there, and wait until things stabilize before returning," Allison insisted. Although we had no idea when that future stability would come. After we hung up, we continued our plan, taking advantage of the noisy chaos outside to start breaking through the wall. Half an hour later, we had created a hole just big enough for a person to squeeze through, and then nailed the door of the activity room shut. The activity room, facing the corridor, had no windows. Unless someone could fly up to the 4th floor from the back, no one would discover the supplies stored here. We didn't board up the balcony, doing so would be too obvious. However, since we were on the 4th floor and zombies can't fly, the only threat we anticipated was from other humans. By 7 p.m., the campus had quieted down considerably. Most people were infected and wandered aimlessly, looking out. Some dorm rooms still had lights on, and cries and curses could be heard occasionally. It seemed there were still people in our building, but I couldn't pinpoint their exact location. We didn't turn on the lights, opting instead to quietly organize supplies with the curtains drawn. The dorm room was now filled with stuff. We kept essentials within reach and moved everything else quietly into the activity room. When it was time to sleep, aside from Allison, the 3 of us took turns keeping watch. Each of us had a hammer and a knife at our side, ready to handle any emergencies. The next morning, the air had already filled with the stench of decay. It was summer, and bodies decomposed quickly. Someone was vomiting, but the 4 of us had grown accustomed to the smell, which would persist until winter arrived. We continued to contact our families, thankfully finding them still alive, and encouraged each other to keep going. After a simple breakfast, we bathed and cleaned up, then filled every basin and container with water. A message came through in the class group chat. The counselor was checking who was still alive. Only 4 guys responded, while we remained silent. Of the 42 students in our architecture class, only 8 survived. Someone in the group lit a virtual candle, followed by 3 others. The counselor advised in the chat, secure your doors and windows, keep quiet, store water, charge your batteries, and wait for rescue. But we knew rescue was unlikely to arrive anytime soon, at least not within the next 6 months. On the 3rd day of the apocalypse, the power and water shut off. As soon as we woke, we tried calling home, but this time, I couldn't reach my parents. Perhaps there was no signal, or perhaps I didn't dare to think further, hoping it was just a connectivity issue. Allison, too, was unable to contact anyone. She and Alexander had lost communication since the previous night. We didn't say much. Preparing for the worst but hoping for the best, we turned off all computers and chargers, hoping the batteries would last for 9 months, long enough to watch videos that might help Allison during childbirth. Outside, the sound of zombies scratching at the door could be heard. Peering through the crack, I saw a dozen of my former classmates wandering the hallway in tatters. Is anyone still alive? Is there anyone left? 401, 402, 403, someone in room 405 cried out hysterically. It sounds like she is on the verge of a breakdown. When the zombies heard the noise, they all gathered towards it. Being quiet at that moment was the most effective way to protect oneself, but I could understand her situation. She was probably the only one left in her dormitory. Soon her screams ceased. She must have realized that shouting would attract the zombies. On the 4th day of the apocalypse, the cell phone signal was completely gone. Around noon, we suddenly heard the sound of a car. Looking out the window, we saw a small van stop downstairs. A robust father and son duo, along with a middle-aged woman, climbed onto the vehicle and shouted at the top of their lungs, "Ashton, where are you?" Their shouting immediately drew the nearby zombies, but the zombies couldn't reach them due to the height of the van. Mom, Dad, brother. The girl in room 405 opened her window, crying with joy. It turned out her family had come to save her. The father and son spread out a blanket and shouted, "Ashton, jump down, we'll catch you." Without hesitation, the girl leaped down and her father and brother caught her firmly. Then the family embraced tightly. Seeing this, we all felt envious. Having family by your side during such times brought a sense of security. We too missed our parents. Even in death, it would be a blessing to be together. "Uncle, save me, take me with you," cried other dormitory residents upon seeing this. The man looked at them troubledly. With so many zombies around and the situation worsening, they had to leave soon. The car vanished from our sight, and its noise had attracted even more zombies. By the afternoon, gunfire was heard throughout the city. Rescue teams had arrived, sparking hope once again. Fighter jets circled overhead, their bullets sweeping across in rows, mowing down many zombies. But soon they rose again. Gradually, the gunfire died down, and the jets left. Firearms were of little use if they couldn't hit the zombies' heads. They merely wasted bullets. Many people started crying again. If even the rescue teams were helpless, what could ordinary people do? On the 5th day of the apocalypse, we faced our first critical situation. Sophia's period came early, and she wrapped herself in a blanket to keep her scent from leaking out. Sweating profusely in the summer heat, we sealed the cracks in the doors and windows with tape and sprayed the room with mugwort-scented cologne to mask the smell of blood. This was a trick we had learned from past experiences, though it only worked in small spaces. Sophia emerged from the blanket. I stood by the door, listening to the sounds outside. The zombies in the hallway did not react to the blood, and none gathered under the balcony. We all breathed a sigh of relief. We hoped that when Allison gave birth, we could also keep it undetected from the zombies. On the 6th day of the apocalypse, a heavy rain fell. Surviving students stood on balconies with buckets to collect rainwater, and some even stripped down to shower. During the downpour, the zombies stood motionless, letting the rain wash over them. Among these zombies, I saw classmates and our counselor. Just a few days ago, the counselor was still checking in on who was alive in the group chat, instructing us not to go outside, but now, she had become a zombie. Why hadn't she stayed safely in her room? There was only one explanation: she had already been infected when she sent those messages. I clasped my hands and prayed to the heavens, praying for every soul to find its place. Stop praying. This situation proves there are no gods. If there were, how could they allow humanity to suffer like this? Gabriella said angrily. Sophia shook her head. Maybe not. Perhaps our rebirth is part of some divine plan. That's true, but what can we do? We didn't know what we could do. The only thing we can do is to cherish this opportunity and live well. Day 10 of the apocalypse. Perhaps knowing that rescue was unlikely, the surviving students began to fend for themselves. After the rain stopped, I saw people tearing bed sheets into strips and tying them around themselves, then climbing from one balcony to another in search of supplies. Some people didn't have the habit of stocking up on snacks, and by day 10, they were nearly starving. They had no choice but to take the risk. Some were lucky, managing to find food and drink in the dormitories they entered, which allowed the survivors to hold out a bit longer. However, some were unfortunate enough to encounter zombies and had to evacuate quickly, but it was still too late. I noticed someone watching our side. Although they weren't looking directly at our dormitory, I felt they were planning something. Could they have found the stuff we left in the recreation room? Gabriella worried. I don't think so. We drew the curtains there. They probably planned to come over here after they run out of supplies. I analyzed. but we both felt it was unlikely they could make it over. Despite the dorms being less than 100 meters apart, there were too many zombies. Getting to our side seemed almost impossible. Day 15 of the apocalypse, a bag of trash was thrown down from an upper floor, indicating there were still survivors in our building. I immediately thought of the two girls who helped us carry things on the day of the apocalypse, hoping they were still alive. The 5th and 6th floors are occupied by the horticulture and civil engineering departments. They won't come down, will they? Sophia worried. It's okay, we are all girls here, and even if they come to rob us, there are 4 of us, we can handle it, Gabriella responded. I looked up, listening intently to the sounds above. It was very quiet, and I couldn't tell which room they were in. Every few days, a bag of trash would be thrown down, and from this frequency, I deduced there weren't many people above. Day 30 of the apocalypse, Allison began experiencing morning sickness, along with symptoms like bleeding gums and cracked skin. This was because we hadn't eaten any fruits or vegetables for a long time. While we were managing okay, it was different for her since she was pregnant. That's strange. Isn't she taking vitamins every day? How could this happen? We opened the medical books we had downloaded on our phones and discovered that vitamins couldn't completely replace fruits and vegetables, and that some people could even get poisoned from taking too many. But where could we find fruits and vegetables now? Just as we were worrying, there was a noise from the balcony. We immediately held our breath and stayed silent. I picked up a knife and tiptoed over, with Gabriella and Sophia following me with weapons in hand. Peeking through a corner of the curtain, I saw a girl tied with bed sheets sitting on the railing, looking up and talking to someone above. I've made it. There seemed to be no zombies here. I remembered this girl. She was the one who had helped us carry things that day. They were indeed still alive. She deftly jumped down, holding a fruit knife, and slowly approached us. The moment she pushed the door open, I pulled her in and held the knife to her neck. Don't move! Although she had helped us before, she was now holding a knife, and I couldn't afford to take any chances. The girl we subdued immediately dropped the knife and raised her hands. Don't kill me. I just came to find some food. I mean no harm. I had the knife for zombies. I kicked her knife away, feeling conflicted inside. She had discovered us and had seen our supplies. A single shot from her could make us a target. Eliminating her seemed the safest option, but although I had killed zombies, I had never killed a person, and I couldn't bring myself to do it, especially since she didn't seem to be lying. Gabriella and Sophia also hesitated, looking at me uncertainly. I remember you guys, the ones who bought a lot of milk powder last time. It's really great that you're still alive. I thought everyone was dead, the girl whispered softly. I finally let go of the knife in my hand. This girl was terrifyingly saint-like. Even when I was holding the knife to her, she had said, It's really great that you are all alive. We gave her some food, and just as we were about to warn her not to come back or else we wouldn't be so polite, she spoke first. I won't take your food for nothing. I'll have my roommate send down some blueberries and lemons. Maybe you can use them. We thought she was lying. How could fruits last that long? But to our surprise, her roommate actually lowered down a plastic bag containing more than 20 blueberries and 2 small lemons. We grew these ourselves, and we'll have some tomatoes ripe in a few days. We'll give you some then, the girl said without reservation. Why would you grow these? We asked, puzzled. We started growing blueberries and lemons just for fun, and I don't know how, but the tomatoes just started growing from the pot, maybe brought by birds. I had heard that birds could carry seeds, but regardless of how they came, they were certainly a big help at this time. My name is Autumn. I'm from the dorm 2 floors above you. What are your names? The girl seemed to have a knack for socializing. Unlike me, who would have quickly left after getting the food, we told her our names, and she even invited us to her dorm to see the fruits they were growing. Autumn, keep a low profile, or you won't even know how you might end up, I warned her. Autumn nodded silently. As she reached the door, she suddenly turned back. But you are good people, aren't you? Otherwise, you could have easily killed me just now. She climbed back nimbly, leaving the 4 of us exchanging looks. Must be a saint reincarnated, Gabriella muttered under her breath before breaking into a laugh. We all smiled too. The oppressive life of the past month finally relaxed a bit today. We sliced the lemons and mixed them with honey for Allison to drink, and she finally stopped vomiting so violently. 2 days later, Autumn actually sent down 6 tomatoes. Although they weren't very pretty, they tasted somewhat sweet and tangy. We tasted a few and gave the rest to Allison. We reciprocated by sending some food to Autumn and told her how to avoid attracting zombies during menstruation, and gradually we began to communicate more, but they never asked us why we had stockpiled so many supplies. I knew they were curious too, but perhaps they didn't ask out of fear, or maybe out of respect. On the 50th day after the apocalypse began, we spotted living people, 4 tall young men, carrying buckets, were smeared with a dark red paste, carefully walking among the zombies. who surprisingly did not attack them. How did they manage that? Allison asked in amazement. I couldn't see clearly what was on them, so I used my phone's camera to zoom in for a closer look. Through the camera, it appeared that they were smeared with flesh and blood. My mind flashed back to a zombie TV show I had seen, where people covered themselves with zombie flesh and blood to mask their scent and successfully avoided the zombies. I shared this with Allison and the others, and they found it incredible. We continued to watch the young men as they quickly passed through the woods to an artificial lake, filled their buckets with water, and then ran off. Although they were successful, we dared not try catching zombies to experiment, for a single mistake could be fatal. Yet others began to follow their example, trying to survive by capturing zombies, but the outcomes were as we expected. Ultimately, they all perished at the hands of zombies. Those 4 young men must have had not only courage but also great strength, probably athletes. The others dared not act recklessly, but inaction meant no food, and gradually they began to argue, fight, and scuffle, until it all went quiet. On the 70th day of the apocalypse, the weather finally started to cool as autumn approached. Allison's abdomen began to bulge slightly, the small life within her growing strongly like a determined sprout. Our lives too began to carry hope. Amidst so much death that had passed, this tiny sprout represents a small hope. Allison suffered severely from morning sickness. The lemons that once helped had long been eaten, and nothing else could alleviate her nausea, causing her body to become increasingly frail. We took great care of her and often spoke to the little baby in her belly, hoping he would understand his mother's hardships. Miraculously, it seemed as if the little one understood, as Allison gradually began to feel an appetite, and her morning sickness wasn't as severe as before. I believe this little sprout will surely grow up to be a sensible child. We've planned that if the rescue team hasn't arrived by the time the child is born, we will make our way to the neighboring agricultural university. There, with its agricultural base and greenhouses, likely still stocked with seeds and fertilizers, we could settle down and start farming. Autumn and her roommate Brianna would occasionally sneak down under the cover of night, and were surprised to see Allison pregnant. So, you were buying baby formula because you have a little one on the way, Autumn said with a look of realization. May I touch him? Allison nodded. Go ahead, thanks to all the fruit you've shared. This child will grow up healthy partly because of you. Autumn carefully placed her hand on Allison's belly. The baby is moving. He's kicking me. How could that be? He's only 3 months old and not moving yet. It must be my stomach making you think that, Allison said with a smile, now looking much healthier and truly maternal. I want to be his godmother when he's born, Autumn declared. Gabriella clicked her tongue. We all just want to be aunts, and here you are wanting to be a godmother, dreaming big. Everyone laughed softly. The sky was heavily clouded, hiding the moonlight. Though clouds can obscure the moon, they cannot steal it away. On the 80th day of the apocalypse, those 4 boys appeared again. This time, they weren't here to fetch water, but to look for food. Armed with clubs and knives, they searched the buildings around us for supplies. In a past life, we had seen how savagely survivors could fight over a single cookie. In the face of hunger, human decency was worthless. Fortunately, after finding some supplies, they left without approaching our building. However, as they were leaving, I overheard them saying our building had many zombies. More zombies mean there are living people. I didn't know if they were onto us, but it was a reminder that we needed to be cautious. We started to exercise, rehearsing how we would defend ourselves if someone came to rob us. I recalled the fighting techniques my dad had taught me and passed them on to Gabriella and Sophia. However, I also felt sad, not knowing how my parents were doing now. On the 112th day of the apocalypse, several military planes flew over our school. It was the Army's planes, a sign that our country still stood. Though the planes merely passed by, they gave us hope. The nation endures, and so do its people and soldiers. Our home must still be there. On the 175th day of the apocalypse, it was New Year's Day. This day held significant meaning for us. In a past life, we had died to zombies just an hour before the new year, but now, we were still alive. We kept our eyes open until the new year arrived. We've survived. The 4 of us hugged tightly, unable to hold back tears. Suddenly, Allison cried out softly, gently touching her belly. What's wrong? Gabriella and Sophia asked anxiously. Allison gasped. The little rascal is kicking me. He's a little mischief maker. Gabriella laughed. Little baby, don't bully mommy, Sophia said to Allison's belly. I also reached out and could feel a small bump. Allison said it was the baby's hand. It was my first time touching a fetus, and the feeling was extraordinary, although I wasn't related by blood. A sense of responsibility inexplicably arose in my heart. We were initially panicked by his arrival, afraid that he would be a burden, but now, I look forward to his safe and healthy birth, hoping he grows up in a world free of zombies, surrounded only by love and blessings. That night, we all had good dreams. On the 200th day of the apocalypse, it was the Lunar New Year, snow began to fall, blanketing the world in white. The number of zombies at the school had decreased significantly, their whereabouts unknown. Looking down the hallway, the zombies were gone, leaving behind only Beatrice's cell phone. I can still hear her last conversation with her mother ringing in my ears. And I find myself missing my own parents, in the snowy landscape. Two red-crowned cranes danced gracefully, a sight of elegance we had never seen before. We all crowded at the window, mesmerized. As about 7 or 8 zombies approached them, we tensed up, sensing danger. The cranes took flight, while we remained trapped, unsure of when we would be free. Suddenly, a rebar flew, piercing a zombie's skull, causing it to fall as dark blood stained the white snow. The 4 boys appeared again, carrying knives. They approached, decapitating a zombie and discarding its head, then smearing its blood on themselves. The nearby zombies, drawn by the scent of living humans, swarmed over. The boys fiercely chopped off zombie heads, dragging the bodies toward our dormitory building. They seemed to be heading to our dorm, Gabriella said nervously. Soon, we heard the sound of the main door being shut, followed by the noise of searching and rummaging. No one had visited our building before, so there should still be some supplies left. They might stay for a while. What should we do? They'll definitely come up, and they're so strong. We're just like chicks in front of them. I had gotten a good look at the 4 of them, nearly 6 feet tall. They could decapitate a zombie with a single strike. We definitely couldn't match them in a fight. I checked our supplies, since we usually shared with Autumn and the others. We only had 17 buckets of water left, and food that could last maybe 3 to 4 months. Let's hide in the activity room for now. If they find us, we'll share our supplies if that's what they want, but if it comes to life and death, we won't back down, I said. Gabriella, Sophia, and Allison agreed, as those were our only options at the moment. The 4 boys didn't come up immediately. They kept searching the lower floors, even lighting books for warmth. We could hear their complaints and curses. They searched floor by floor, and on the 3rd day, they reached our 4th floor. We hid in the activity room, covering a hole in the wall with a large poster. With a loud bang, our bedroom door was kicked forcefully but didn't open. This door is pretty sturdy. Damn it, can't kick it open with 1 foot, one of them said. I think you just haven't eaten enough. Move aside, let me do it. Another sneered, then kicked hard. With a crack, the door panel shattered. But because we had propped it with wood slantingly, the door, though broken, remained closed. They paused, and then it went quiet. We didn't know what they were doing, and could only tightly grip our weapons. About 3 minutes later, they suddenly appeared on our balcony, having climbed down from the 5th floor. There are so many wooden boards here. Someone must be living here. Their voices carried over. Where are they, though? Someone asked, sitting near a hole in the wall, making our hearts leap to our throats. They probably went out for food and got bitten by zombies. Someone knocked on the wooden boards. Which department's female dormitory is this? They can even do carpentry. That's pretty badass. It must be the civil engineering or architecture department. Female dorms always smell nice. Everything outside stinks, but their blankets still smell good. They started tampering with our stuff. I'm 20 and still don't know what a woman feels like. I hope I don't die a virgin. What a waste of my looks and physique, someone lamented. Can't you speak more auspiciously during the new year? A mischievous voice chided. I wish I could be luckier. I really want a girlfriend. Bo, have you ever been in a relationship? Of course I have. The mischievous voice suddenly stopped. Just as we were puzzled, a poster was torn open, and a young man with a knife crawled through the hole. We were discovered. Without a word, he lunged at us with his knife. I grabbed his arm. My father had taught me about pressure points on the human arm that could temporarily paralyze it. I had used this tactic in a previous life to escape after injuring someone. This time, I struck the same spot on his arm. I succeeded. The knife fell from the young man's hand, but my body was thrown into the air and then slammed hard onto the ground. He had flung me with his other hand. At that moment, I realized that in the face of absolute strength, skill meant nothing. The disparity in our strength was too great. A severe ringing filled my brain, and amidst my dizziness, I saw Gabriella and Sophia rushing over to save me, while Autumn and Brianna swung their sticks. The other 3 boys also crawled through, and we scuffled together. I didn't know how many punches I took, but I didn't let them off easily either. I bit fiercely into one of their hands, drawing blood. No, Allison screamed, kneeling in front of the boy and spreading her arms to protect me, tears streaming down her face. Take everything, just don't kill her. It was then that I noticed the boy had already moved his knife towards my throat. The boy and his companions stopped, looking at us in surprise. Are you human? The boy asked. Of course, we're human. I released my bite, my mouth filled with the taste of blood. He had suffered a significant bite from me. He also withdrew his knife. If you're human, why didn't you speak? You bit like zombies. That's when we realized They thought we were zombies, so they attacked with knives, and we fought back thinking they were here to rob and kill us. Everyone was on edge, ready to snap at any moment. We sat far apart from each other. They gathered and talked among themselves. Through their conversation, I learned that the talkative boy I had bitten was Beau, the one afraid of dying a virgin was Bennett, and the other two who sneakily watched us were Bryce and Calvin. Beau was their squad leader, and the other three listened to him closely. As he bandaged his wound, he eyed our supplies, then his gaze fell on Allison's belly. There's even a pregnant woman. Allison was now 8 months pregnant and looked pale after the ordeal. We can share our supplies with you, but don't try any tricks, I told them sternly. Beau looked at us disdainfully. What if we do want to play tricks? What can you do about it? You're right. We can't do much about you, but they can. I pointed outside at the zombies. If we recklessly cut our veins and our blood spurts out, do you think those zombies outside won't crazily rush towards us? Can you guarantee that you'll escape unscathed? Beau's expression gradually became serious. He could tell we weren't joking. We helped Allison to lie down and covered her with several blankets, but her hands remained ice cold. I moved all the books up to start a fire for warmth. Since we had already been discovered, there was no longer a need for caution. Bennett and the other two were peering over curiously, while Beau fiddled with the knife in his hand. That night, neither of us got much sleep. The next day, we ate some dry instant noodles, but Beau and his group cooked a meal. They tore up books and split tables for firewood, and cooked some of our vacuum-packed food with rice, filling the air with a delicious aroma. They ate ravenously, almost licking the pot clean in the end. Later, they brought up 2 buckets of snow to melt and wash off the stains on their bodies. The water in the basin quickly turned a dark red from the zombie blood they had wiped off themselves. Aren't you afraid the virus will enter through your wounds? I had bitten him yesterday, and he still had injuries on his hand. Beau appeared unconcerned. I'm tough, in the face of the virus. All creatures are equal. I think he's not afraid of getting infected because the virus in the blood of the dead zombies dies as well, and he probably knows this from previous experiences, which is why he isn't worried. Every living person here hasn't just simply survived. Once cleaned up, they didn't look so frightening. Their youthful faces still retained a bit of boyishness, and when they sat quietly, one could almost be fooled into thinking they were well behaved. Beau and his group moved into the dormitory next to ours, keeping to themselves except for when going to the common room to eat. Every day they patrolled the area, dealing swiftly and cleanly with any zombies that came close. I don't know why they didn't just take supplies and leave, or even stay on a different floor, but for some reason, they chose to stay with us. Recalling Bennett's previous mention of wanting a girlfriend, could it be? But we couldn't dwell on that now, because after the incident, Allison was shocked and her mental state began to deteriorate, struggling to eat anything. We were worried but felt powerless, only able to carefully look after her while preparing for the possibility of premature labor. Bennett came by occasionally, looking like he wanted to say something. If you have something to say, just say it. I didn't like playing guessing games. Bennett half-stepped through a hole in the wall. Although I'm not a doctor, I think she needs one. That's stating the obvious. We were also in desperate need of a doctor, but there was nowhere to find one now. Beau dragged Bennett away. Don't make things worse. Our fuel had run out, so we could only burn tables and chairs. When Allison woke up, we immediately fed her some porridge, but she shook her head after 2 sips. I want an ice-cold Coke, a Pepsi. She wasn't being unreasonable. Her delirium at this moment meant she wasn't thinking clearly. We were terrified, scared something would happen to her. Fortunately, she regained clarity after a while and looked at us, puzzled. Why are you crying? Gabriella and the others turned away, and I replied, it's too cold, we're freezing. She gently pushed us, then go to bed and cover up with blankets. I'm fine, don't worry. I nodded. Okay, we'll go to bed in a bit. Soon Allison fell asleep again, and we didn't dare leave her side, periodically checking her breathing for fear she would leave us. She was too fragile now. Gabriella and Sophia searched the dormitory building again but found nothing. After a while, Beau handed me a cup filled with water. What's this? I sniffed it. It had a sweet scent. Beau replied, sugar water. She might be anemic or have low blood sugar. How do you know that? Pepsi is very sweet, and her wanting to drink it suggests that her body is signaling a need for sugar. We've seen this during our training sessions before, but that's just my guess. Try it. I woke Allison up and fed her some sugary water. After drinking a few sips, she seemed to perk up a bit and even had an appetite to eat something before going back to sleep. Thank you, I said to him. He pursed his lips. We should be the ones apologizing. If we hadn't been so impulsive and attacked you back then, maybe she wouldn't be in this state. Beau apologized. I had always been wary and displeased with them, but hearing him say that, I couldn't help but sigh. It's hard to say who's right or wrong in this matter. We all just want to survive. Day 210 of the apocalypse. Thick clouds pressed down again, and snow began to drift from the sky. While cooking, Autumn suddenly called out from the 6th-floor balcony, "Listen, do you hear that? Sounds like a car, doesn't it?" We listened carefully and indeed heard a faint sound, seemingly coming from the direction of the neighboring agricultural university. Bo and the others climbed up to the rooftop to look. And after a while, they came back and reported that there indeed were people there, and it seemed like a rescue team. We were overjoyed and immediately gathered books and would to start a smoke signal in hopes of drawing their attention, but no matter what, the smoke wouldn't thicken, and our shouts went unheard. Bo and the others then ran out and set fire to a dormitory building, hoping that would make us noticeable. However, the heavy snow dampened the fire, and it also attracted zombies. So we had to give up the plan. Bo, Bennett, let's go check it out first thing tomorrow morning. Bryce and Calvin, you guys stay here to help. Bo began to arrange, thinking it was time to take action. Okay, Bennett agreed without hesitation. Since they were willing to brave the dangers to find a way out, we naturally did not hesitate to lend our support. We gave them motorcycle helmets and gloves we had bought earlier, hoping they would offer some protection. However, a sudden change occurred in the middle of the night. Allison experienced abdominal pain and bleeding. It was a premature birth. Sophia went to boil water. Autumn and Brianna secured the doors and windows with tape. Bo and Bennett sprayed around mosquito repellent and disinfectant, while Gabriella and I took on the task of delivering the baby. We had never done anything like this. We were still children ourselves, but we had no choice but to proceed. Allison was in so much pain that her face turned pale, but she bit down on a towel without making a sound, fearing that any noise might attract zombies. I whispered the rhythm I had learned from a video, and there was more blood on the sheets than we had anticipated. Worried about nearby zombies, Bo and the others went downstairs with knives to stand guard. I thought they might run away, especially if Allison bled heavily, which would surely attract zombies. At dawn, the baby was finally born, a wrinkled little girl. Due to her mother's malnutrition, the baby was very light, feeling only about 3 or 4 pounds in my arms. The little girl was indeed sensible. She started crying as soon as she was born, sparing us from having to elicit her cries. But after a couple of cries, she fell silent, perhaps due to the cold weather. I quickly took the baby to the activity room and cleaned her with warm water. I thought I would be clumsy, but I managed quite efficiently. Perhaps this is what human potential is all about. After dressing the little girl and wrapping her in a blanket, Bo and the others gathered around to look. "Why does she look so ugly, like a little old lady?" Calvin wondered aloud, immediately attracting warning glances from us. Calvin quickly corrected himself. "No, not ugly, quite pretty." The baby moved a bit then lay still having a heartbeat, but, after all, being born prematurely. Sophia then ran over in a panic. "Alyssa, no matter how much we called, Allison wouldn't wake up." I rushed over immediately and found Allison truly unconscious. I suspected it was due to severe bleeding from childbirth, but after lifting the blankets, although there was some bleeding, it wasn't excessive. It must have been something else that caused her to faint. I made a decision. Let's head to the agricultural university now. If we waited for Bo and the others to fetch help, there was no telling if Allison and the baby could hold on that long. Moreover, for some unknown reason, zombies were continuously gathering towards our location. The amount of blood Gabriella lost was minimal and, masked by the scent of floral water and disinfectant, shouldn't have attracted zombies from afar. If the zombies surrounded us before their return, we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves. It would be better to make a run for it while the zombies hadn't fully assembled yet. But how can Allison go out in this condition? Sophia worriedly asked. "I'll carry Allison on my back, and Calvin, you hold the baby. Bennett and Bryce, you guys lead the way," Bo said as he took off his down jacket and slung Allison on his back with a sheet, trying to minimize her discomfort after childbirth. "Gabriella, Sophia, let's hang the bloody sheets out the window to divert the zombies. Quick, Autumn, Brianna, come help too," I instructed as I tore the blood-soaked sheets into pieces, weighed them down, and hung them outside. The trick worked. The zombies were lured to the other side of the dormitory. "Rub this on." Bo handed us bottles filled with zombie blood. We quickly smeared ourselves with it and left the dormitory, racing through the heavy snow towards the agricultural university. The cold wind was like knives against our skin, and running so intensely made our lungs feel like they were about to burst. Our throats tasted of blood, but hope was ahead, and we had to keep running. Finally, we saw some lights ahead, a sign of people, but the zombies were converging from all directions, and zombie blood could no longer disguise us. "Bennett, go call for help," Bo shouted. "Okay." Bennett ran, stripping off his clothes until his torso was bare. disappearing into the night like an arrow. As we neared our school's entrance, several zombies blocked our path, which we cleared with the weapons in our hands. Killing one wave only brought another, and we continued fighting fiercely, our blood staining the white snow beneath us. I didn't know how Allison was doing. All I saw was Bo fighting desperately while carrying her. Calvin, with the baby wrapped in his arms, protected the child with one hand and cleaved through zombie brains with the other. Bryce also bravely cleared the way, decapitating one zombie after another. They could have just run. They were athletes with the ability to reach the rescue team. Although we were all students from the same university, if it weren't for this apocalyptic world, the architecture students like us might never have met the sports students. We were strangers brought together by chance. Yet now we depended on each other for survival. And then Autumn, Brianna, they trusted us unreservedly, never uttering a word of complaint. A zombie reached for Allison, but another zombie knocked it away, as if saving her. But how could that be, since when do zombies save people? Quick, into the guard room. There are no zombies inside, Gabriella yelled. We hurried over and secured the doors and windows once inside. Bryce held the door like a one-man fortress, while Gabriella and the others guarded the windows. At that moment, Allison's eyes fluttered open, showing some signs of consciousness. Allison, how are you feeling? I asked anxiously. Allison looked at me weakly. I'm okay. How's the baby? The baby's still alive, nice and warm, Calvin replied, touching the little infant in his arms. Thank you, Allison said to Calvin, then added, Alyssa, I saw Alexander, he came to get me. Suddenly, she became alert. Could this be a fleeting resurgence? My heart ached as I said, don't talk nonsense, you're going to be fine, the rescue team will be here soon. She tried to say something, moving her lips weakly, but she didn't have the strength left. All she could do was stretch out her hand towards us, and we all held it tightly. That summer when we were 18, we came from all over to room 412 in the architecture department at Jiang University. We trained together, attended classes, and played together. Even though we sometimes had disagreements, we always made up quickly. We had promised to be lifelong best friends, to strive together in our youth, dance together in the square when we were old, and then, on the day we left this world, to look back on our lives with smiles and satisfaction. Allison, you absolutely cannot die here. Pull yourself together, I said firmly to her. Allison didn't respond. She just looked at us hazily, her eyes brimming with tears. Suddenly, gunfire erupted, and a heavy vehicle crashed through, scattering the zombies. The doors swung open, and soldiers appeared. We were pulled one by one into the vehicle, which then drove off furiously, plowing through zombies towards the agricultural university. We were rescued. Upon arriving at the university, medical staff immediately carried Allison on a stretcher into the emergency room, while the rest of us, 9 adults and 1 baby, were isolated separately. It's a miracle none of you were infected, the person checking us exclaimed. None of us responded, focused as we were on Allison's uncertain fate. Suddenly, the baby started crying. Calvin clumsily unstrapped the child he had been carrying on his chest. A nurse took the baby, but upon seeing something, she screamed in horror and, as if she had touched a snake, threw the baby away. I quickly caught the baby, and then I was stunned too. There was a dark purple wound on the tiny baby's face. She had been injured by a zombie. I was in shock, overwhelmed by a feeling of helplessness that made it hard to breathe. She was so small, she had just come into this world. How could this happen? I was holding her the whole time. I wasn't injured. How could she be? Calvin was full of self-blame. A security officer approached and aimed a gun at the little girl. They couldn't allow any infected individuals at the camp. I blocked the gun with my hand, tears uncontrollably streaming down my face. She's still human. Can we wait until her human life ends and she turns into a zombie, then let her pass to another world? Gabriella and others also stepped forward to block the gun, and the security personnel sighed and lowered the weapon. As time ticked by, the little child, unaware of what was about to happen, continued to cry. She was hungry. She hadn't eaten anything since she was born. Even after 5 minutes, she was still crying. We all watched in shock because no one who had been infected stayed human for more than 5 minutes. But this baby did. She remained human. There were no terrifying marks on her. Her little face was flushed red from crying. Her heart was still beating, thumping loudly. I could feel it. She hasn't turned into a zombie. She's still alive, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. The security officer rushed outside, his voice also shaking. Get all the virologists to isolation room 3, immediately. As a large group of people in protective suits entered, we were taken to another room where someone brought us hot water. So, is Little Star here to save the world? Sophia murmured. Little Star was the nickname we had given the child. We didn't know the baby's gender, and the name was suitable for both a boy and a girl. It must be, that's why we Gabriella stopped mid-sentence, but I knew what she wanted to say. She meant to say that thus, we are reborn. If little stars truly have the power to save the world, then the meaning of our rebirth isn't just for us to survive alone, but to protect the arrival of this little angel. When the snow stopped, Allison woke up. The doctor said she had fainted due to prolonged anemia, exhaustion from childbirth, and potassium loss. Luckily, she was brought in just in time and was pulled back from the brink of death. When we visited her in the hospital room, she was receiving in-4 drip. Although still weak, she was able to speak. "Where is the baby?" she asked. As we were thinking about how to explain, Sophia said with a smile, "She's out saving the world." This answer was unexpected yet made perfect sense. Yes, that tiny life was indeed shouldering the mission to save the world at that moment. On the 3rd night, the virologist shared news that antigens capable of suppressing the virus were found in Little Star's blood. This explained why Little Star didn't turn into a zombie after being scratched. As for why Little Star had these antigens, the experts couldn't yet explain. The initial theory was similar to how newborn umbilical cord blood can rebuild the human body's hematopoietic and immune systems. Or perhaps it was a form of self-protection by the fetus sensing the harsh external environment while in the womb. The specific answer would require further research. Little Star was conceived when her parents loved each other before the apocalypse, gestated through the hardships of the end times, and born on the run amidst strife and struggle. Whether it is theology or science, she was destined to be extraordinary. I stepped outside and looked up at the sky. The once oppressive clouds had dispersed, revealing a bright, tranquil moon, quietly illuminating the world. "Why are you crying if things turned out so well?" Bo appeared beside me. I reached up to touch my face, only then realizing it was wet with tears. "It's nothing, maybe just too happy. Thanks for everything this time. How is Bennett now?" Bennett had exhausted himself fetching help that day and had collapsed from sheer fatigue. "He's fine. Just needs a couple of days to rest." I nodded. Then after a moment of silence, voiced the question that had been on my mind. "Why didn't you guys leave after you got the supplies that day? Was it because—" He looked at me disdainfully. "Stop there. Did you even see yourselves? Hair disheveled, faces pale as ghosts. We thought you were zombies. How could we have any improper thoughts towards you?" I retorted without backing down. "You guys weren't any better, covered in dirt and reeking, looking more like ghosts than we did." He actually burst out laughing and after a while said softly, "The reason we didn't leave was because we were afraid that once we left, we might never see living people again." Only then did I understand that these four seemingly carefree individuals also craved human warmth. On the 220th day of the apocalypse, the tireless virologists announced the completion of the artificially synthesized antigen, which began clinical trials. We finally got to see Little Star. She had been in the lab for a while, making it hard to visit her. The nurse brought the little girl out, and Allison immediately reached out to take her. It was the first time she had seen her child since birth. She looked at her child tenderly, her gaze making even the cold winter feel warm at that moment. We gathered around too. Little Star was well cared for, looking much bigger and healthier than at birth. And the scar where the zombie had scratched her face had faded significantly. Calvin stood far away, not daring to come closer, burdened by guilt for not protecting Little Star better. Allison handed Little Star to him, understandingly saying, "Hold her, see if she's changed a lot since you last saw her." Calvin awkwardly took the child, examining her carefully. "She looks so much better now. She wasn't ugly before." We all couldn't help but laugh. And the gloom of the past few days lifted in that moment, when spring came and flowers bloomed. We took Little Star for a walk in the campus. Many young people were farming around us. They were agricultural students who had survived the apocalypse by relying on the crops they grew. The government selected this place as a safe zone not only because it could accommodate a large number of rescue workers, it was also because there were certain production conditions here. We all signed up to join in, contributing our efforts to the restoration of production and daily life. Outside the school fence, numerous zombies wandered about. The current antigens could only protect the living from infection. Eradicating the virus would still be a long road ahead. "Let's go somewhere else. There are quite a few zombies here," I said to Allison. But Allison, looking strangely determined, walked towards the fence. We were frightened and immediately ran to stop her, only to hear her call out to a zombie, "Alexander." We looked at the zombie in disbelief. It was a young man, his body disfigured beyond recognition, barely resembling his original appearance. Upon closer inspection, it indeed was Alexander. On the snowy night we fled to the agricultural university. A zombie that nearly harmed Allison was knocked aside by another. I thought it was a coincidence. Back then, Allison claimed she saw Alexander, but we thought it was her hallucination. Now, it seemed neither a coincidence nor a hallucination. It was that bright and cheerful boy who had journeyed across mountains and rivers, keeping his promise to return, but fate played a cruel trick. He was forced to stop forever, just a short distance from his beloved. Allison wept uncontrollably. Little Star, sensing her mother's sorrow and her father's eternal separation, also cried loudly. Alexander, pushed away by other zombies attracted by the noise, staggered away. The security personnel who arrived captured Alexander and took him back to the lab. After their research, they told us it was all a coincidence. Alexander had no life, no consciousness, no miracle. Allison took Alexander's ashes back home. The tablet didn't bear Alexander's name but the words, "I love this world, but I love you more." These were the words Alexander had once used to confess his love to Allison, the once vibrant young man, now contained in a small box. We prayed he might have another life. In that world, we hoped he successfully reached his beloved, living happily ever after with his family. After the sorrow, we resumed our lives. What was gone. The future still awaited. 24 seasons changed from spring to autumn and back. Years passed, and 3 years went by in a blink. The 4 of us girls had become architects, leading the city's reconstruction under our seniors' guidance. Autumn excelled in farming, transitioning from a student in the landscape department to a leader in agricultural studies. Bo and Bennett joined the army in their first year, building new safe zones with the main force, protecting batch after batch of survivors. Little Star grew up healthy, becoming the darling of our safe zone. Sometimes mischievous, she often had Allison chasing her all over the yard, who said she was sensible. "She's really a little troublemaker," Allison said, exhausted and sweating. But then she laughed and added, "Just like her dad." In the 5th year, the zombie crisis was finally resolved, and I made a trip back to my hometown. When I pushed open the door of my house, it was covered in dust. My parents were gone. On the dining table, a cup held down an envelope labeled "For Alyssa." I opened the yellowed letter inside, written in my dad's handwriting. Think about it. If you're reading this letter, it means we haven't met. Perhaps by now we are separated by life and death, but Mom and Dad want to tell you, we went out looking for you. We never gave up on you. Mom and Dad love you. The date was July 6th, the 3rd day after the apocalypse began. Although they didn't know if I would ever read this letter, they hoped I was alive. Clutching the letter, I knelt on the ground crying, my heart torn with pain. Reborn in this world, I never got to reunite with them when I left. I also left behind a letter with my address and took a family portrait with me. Maybe one day in the future, we'll run into each other at some street corner, their hands clasped together, their temples turned gray, while I've grown into someone they no longer need to worry about. When I returned to the safe zone, Gabriella and Sophia were both talking about their boyfriends. Bo and the others had returned as well, after 5 years. They had shed their youthful air and now stood resolute and self-reliant, each capable of standing on their own. Now that everything had stabilized, there was no longer a need for them to be constantly on the move. This time, they were back for good. As soon as Calvin returned, he helped Allison take care of Little Star, who clung to him like a little tail, following him everywhere. Even when someone joked that Uncle Calvin once called her an ugly doll, she just laughed it off without getting upset. One day, Allison told us that Calvin had proposed to her. "Did you say yes?" we asked her. She nodded. "I did. Star really likes him. She even calls him Dad sometimes. Plus, he has taken such good care of us over these 5 years, giving so much." "Do you love him?" we asked. She didn't answer directly but instead looked out at a withered tree outside the window. "We are both adults now. Half of those who survived this catastrophe have moved past their nightmares, while the other half are forever buried in the past." In early May, Allison and Calvin had a simple wedding ceremony, with Little Star as their flower girl. We saw that Calvin's gaze never left Allison and Little Star. We knew that he was truly in love in this marriage. Perhaps in this love, even the withered tree might feel the spring again. We drank a lot at the wedding, not returning until 10 o'clock at night. Gabriella and Sophia were taken home by their boyfriends, and seeing their sweet figures, my heart felt warm. On the way back to the dormitory, someone caught up with me from behind. It was Bo, while Bennett and Bryce teased and then quickly ran off. "You've had too much to drink. I'll take you home." Bo grabbed my staggering self. "I'm fine. A single bottle of wine won't stop me from getting home." I shrugged off his hand, insisting I was sober. He laughed and kept up beside me. Over these 5 years, we had kept in touch, having meals together whenever he was back at the base, and we had become good friends. "What are you laughing at?" I asked him. He stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "Alyssa, I want to ask you a serious question." I nodded, puzzled by his solemnity as I always took our conversations seriously. "When I almost hurt you 5 years ago, did you ever hate me, or dislike me?" He asked earnestly. "Yes," I admitted, "not just him. I had disliked all 4 of them, but the day you carried Allison on your back, I stopped disliking you completely. He nodded, a smile in his eyes. Since you don't dislike me anymore, how about we stop being just friends and become a couple? I was stunned in place. The May breeze brushed against my cheeks, feeling intensely warm. It's okay if you don't agree today. I'll ask you again tomorrow. His playful tone returned, just like when we first met 5 years ago. The streetlight slanted down from above his head, casting a warm glow on his face. I stared at the light, the memories of the past 5 years flashing through this warm glow, and then I heard myself say, "No need for tomorrow, I can say yes right now." He gently embraced me, our shadows merging under the moonlight. We who were once unlikely ever to meet, right now, we are embracing each other. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that the present moment is the most important. I hope that all the beauty and expectations we have will arrive as promised, and that everything in this world will happen at just the right time.